Oh, and then just go up here like that.
Well, this is exciting. Welcome, everyone.
Get myself out.
Yeah.
See you all.
Yeah, see?
This side.
Yeah. In here, right there.
See, the first thing I did was that way.
Oh, let me,
So they came. Oh, landing, I guess.
Yes, I called you. Okay.
trying to find it in my
Green, right now, I'm not too sure.
Hmm.
I've got my email on my phone, but I don't know. You sent me a detail, so I can't. Believe it. Login details there. Apps.
This is great. Okay.
Live.
I think, Kelly, are we live?
Okay.
Yep, we're on. We're ready to go here. And Ian's on. Sarah?
Right.
I'm gonna pin Ian.
First.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. We respectfully acknowledge that the land on which we gather is the unceded traditional territory of the Shishwetnik. Committee of the whole, we're going to resolve the committee of the whole recommendation that council resolve itself into committee of the whole at 2:08. Could I get, thank you, Councillor Bushel and seconder, Councillor Rich, opposed? Carried. Thank you. Okay, so today we're going to start with Sheila and Sycamoose Eagles, a Junior B Hockey Club introduction. Sheila, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for having us this afternoon and for the support that we get of the Sycamoose Eagles here in town. So this afternoon, we've got the whole entire team here, complete with their jerseys on. They're going to come in, they're going to introduce themselves. They're going to tell you who they are, what position they play, and where they're from, because they're from all over Canada. And then we will have their coaches come in after. They're going to just go around back of each one of you until they form a complete horseshoe so we can take a picture at the end.
Awesome.
So we'll have our captain come in first.
Nice.
Hello, my name is Alex Smith. I'm a forward and I'm from High River, Alberta.
Welcome, Alex.
My name is Steve Driver. I'm a goalie. I'm from West Alberta. Ash Miles, I'm from Alberta and I'm a defenseman. My name is Aiden Taylor. I'm from Calgary. I'm from White. My name is David Cunningham. I'm a goaltender from Sturgeon County, Alberta. My name is and I'm also from Sturgeon County, Alberta. I'm Alex Bennett. I'm from right here in Sycamoose, and I'm a I'm Toby Admin. I play defense. I'm from Calgary, Alberta. Hi, I'm Daniel Green, center, and I'm from Calgary, Alberta.
Hi, I'm Tyler Burke and I'm a forward, center mid, and from Burn, BC.
Hi, I'm Coach Allen. I'm a veteran from Fort St. John, BC. Hi, I'm Roger Corey. I'm from East Alberta, the left wing. I'm Gordon Crawford. I'm from Winnipeg, Manitoba, and I'm a winger. Smith from Calgary, Alberta. I'm Gerard, and I'm a defenseman from Calgary, Alberta. Hi, I'm Nick Hughes from Calgary, Alberta, and I play defense. Brett Joseph from Edmonton, Alberta, I play defense. Hi, I'm Warren, obviously, from Edmonton, Alberta, and I'm a center. Hi, I'm from Silver Lake, Alberta.
Nobody knows.
Sycamoose resident and the director of hockey administration, assistant coach. Eric Tubb, Calgary, Alberta, assistant coach. Jay from Florida, and I'm the head coach.
So now we get somebody to take pictures.
That's awesome. Thanks, guys. Welcome. Glad you're here today.
You should be nervous.
No, you know what? We're very proud that we have the Eagles supporting our community. So, and it's really nice to meet all of you and glad that you made the time to come in and meet all of us as well. So, I also understand that you guys do a little snow removal by donation. So, if anyone needs some snow removed, I understand these guys like to shovel, and it's a donation to the Eagles hockey team. So thank you, guys.
Great.
Yeah, okay, there.
That way.
Ease in.
We together.
Do we want council to go?
You want Malcolm and Pam and.
Are we just gonna switch her?
Standing? Oh, I see.
Maybe a little bit more, Malcolm.
Let's sit on your first. I won't fart on you.
Okay, let's say go Eagles.
Go Eagles.
Let's go.
Yeah.
First game. My first game.
Here we go.
Yeah, I thought that was happening.
Yeah, it's on our agenda.
Oh, it's in there, but I guess I didn't read the program.
10 o'clock.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
And I put illustration. I'm trying to get in. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. Sounds good.
Okay, so
They sorted me.
five.
Yeah. Well,
Thanks, guys. Okay, we're moving forward. We've got communities in bloom, and we've got Deb here to give us an update.
Yes.
Did you want to come and, Deb, did you want to come and stand over here with?
Yeah, just so that I don't feel like I'm being interrogated.
Sure.
First of all, before I get started, I just want to say thank you to council, but also congratulations on your win. And I just wanted to make a comment that I'm loving the lighting downtown. It's something that I've always wanted to do. If there's a way that we can expand that beyond Christmas, I would be ecstatic, but I'm loving it. It looks great. Downtown revitalization has always been a top priority, and it really makes a difference. So I want to talk a little bit. I know you guys already know, obviously, that we got the 5 blooms, but the Year of the Garden Award, which we have here, was kind of one that I was especially obviously I was really excited about the 5 blooms, but I was kind of excited about this because as soon as we came up with the idea to go to have the Ukrainian theme for this year, I just love the way it all came together in terms of the art boards having the sunflower, planting the sunflowers around town, redoing the Ukrainian internment camp memorial and putting a garden around it, making it higher profile. And the judges really, they commented on all those things, and also with Tamara doing her like fundraising for the Ukrainian families with plant sales and such. It just, they really, I think, loved the whole angle. And so we got this little beauty. So at the end, I'd like to take a quick picture with some of the team and council too, because communities and provincial, Catherine has asked us to send that. So the other thing is I guess, you know, we have a new council now. So going forward, I don't know about your priorities. My thinking is that I'm quite happy to continue on and look for opportunities for it to expand in the community with volunteers and whatever. But once I hear more back about your priorities, I like to always try and do whatever we can to support that. But obviously, personally and with the group, downtown revitalization is always going to be one of our top priorities, and we want to continue with that. But I think there's also some good opportunities. I sent you guys the email, but I love working with Daryl, you know, so as long as he's around, I'm here. But just the opportunities that being a destination garden community now, being a 5 Bloom community, being some of the things that we've got happening really has the potential to build in terms of people that look for gardens as a holiday option and kind of making it part of our tourist strategy. So I've been talking to Carly about that too. I'll continue talking to Jamie about trying to do education and resident programs within the community. And the businesses, of course, I always love to work with the businesses and, you know, like they're good in terms of being sponsors, but also in terms of being partners with everything we're doing. So the last part, I'm not sure if, you know, like what your guys' thoughts are on it, but we are allowed to hold our 5 Bloom status for 1 year without participating in the evaluated category. And personally, as much as I love supporting communities in bloom, we can do it through being a friend community and doing some you know, showcase projects, which has always been my personal thing that I love to do. And, you know, obviously the gardens and such, but when you get into the evaluations of turf management programs and pest control and it's like, I do it because I have to, you know, like to get the numbers you need. But it's not a personal priority. And I think that I definitely want to continue to partner with them, but I'm thinking that we got our 5 blooms. We're just going to rest on our laurels for a year maybe, and then just really look at some good opportunities for projects and that. So anyway, I did, you know, like want to, if we could get a quick picture. And so Anna Marg and Carol and Linda where'd you go? Oh, there you are. You know, if we could just get you to come up and maybe I'll go in how do you think it would work the best?
Well, it would probably work best if we wait till after, but if you're all in a rush, then, because I just want to continue.
Yeah.
But if you guys want to meet, but before you leave, does council have any questions for Deb?
Yeah,
So
so,
we'll go to shoot out.
yeah.
Go ahead, Gord.
I just want to say to Deb and her team, thank you very much. You guys make a world of difference in Sycamoose, and it's a better place to be. And boy, we couldn't do it without you. Thank you very much. And of course, Daryl's team as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%.
Yep.
No, and everybody's, it is a real team effort, and, you know, like staff, council, you know, the Communities in Bloom group. And, you know, like you think about, we started in 2016, I guess, and with a lot of our showcase feature projects, I think it's transformed the downtown. And you know, like it's been a good program to be a part of, so.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I appreciate all you do. And Daryl, thank you to you and your team for all of the support that they supply.
I'll pass that on.
Communities in Bloom.
And just in closing that, right up that the Communities in Bloom wrote the 22-page document, very detailed. Boy, you don't really explain all the work you really did. And if you read
No,
that,
there's a lot there.
there's a lot there. It's amazing. Yeah, good work, Deb.
Thank you, Deb.
Okay,
Very good work.
Daryl.
Thanks, Deb.
you bet.
Okay, we're going to move into a development services update. Scott, do you want to take it away?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. So this is the report, the October 22 report. We'll have the November report for you on the 14th. Like we're already at the end of November. But so far year to date, 99 building permits issued, $13 million in value. So up from last year a little bit. Probably most of the dollar value accounts for construction costs of cost more to build a home these days. So not a whole, well, I guess 15 more files, but yeah, $5 million in assessment. But if anybody has any questions about this, we'll have an update for you on the 14th as well.
Counselors, any questions? No?
It's good.
It's good.
Next is the current development applications. These are the active files. Council will be considering 2 of them this evening. Some of them have been around. They're on hold for different reasons. Other ones we've just received. But yeah, you can tell by the file number on the left. So 331. So that's 331 files we've received. That includes the building permits. You can take out 100. So yeah, about 221 files so far this year. And then we do provide the Planning and Development Committee an update of all the files we've dealt with. If anybody wants to see those, they'll be on the agenda for the Planning and Development Committee.
Scott, can I interrupt for a minute? Can everyone hear Scott back there?
No.
Hey, Scott, can I get you to speak up a tiny bit, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Council have any questions on these ones?
Nope.
Next.
Okay, the bylaw enforcement update. So this is something new. I'm just trying a new format of delivering this to council. You can see the new files we receive each month and the existing files that we're still working on, and then the files that we close each month. Yeah, not a lot of tickets issued this time of year. And then just the existing files. They are confidential for the most part, the bylaw enforcement files. So I've just tried to summarize them, the type of file and then what the next steps are. Usually you're working towards compliance. That's hopefully that you don't have to issue a ticket. You make someone aware of the situation, and then hopefully we're working towards them fixing it, whether it's applying for a building permit or another permit. Often it's just, an unsightly where they're gonna get an inspection. And then projects, just the different things that we have John working on. He's not spending as much time out and about right now. So he's getting caught up on some training, working on traffic control bylaw, looking at a new way to deliver fines through as opposed to the MTI ticketing process. But yeah, doing research on other things. So again, any questions, we can answer those. I know there have been some questions over bylaw enforcement and how we receive complaints and how we respond to them. So I can answer those if anybody has those.
Does anyone have any questions? Councilors? Go ahead, Councilor Bushel.
Through the chair, yeah, Scott, you and I talked about the vandalism and that was going on Shuswap Avenue and a few places around the community. And maybe because we have a larger audience, do you want to maybe just explain the process for complaints, like when they phone, or like when the bylaw officer is on duty in the winter versus summer times?
Right.
Yeah, like is it off on weekends or all that?
So in the summers when we see most of our violations, so basically noise and parking. So the bylaw enforcement officer does work longer hours or hours outside of regular business hours in the summer. This time of year, his hours are restricted a little bit more till kind of a couple hours during the day. But as need arises, if council wants to see a different service, we can adjust his schedule to respond to those types of complaints. I guess as the season changes over, there might be more parking issues, bigger vehicles with sleds on the back or something like that, where the bylaw enforcement officer can respond to those when they're parked on the street, because they won't be necessarily parked on the street during the day. They'd be evenings and mornings before they head out. The vandalism really, we just be referring those to MP, it's more than a bylaw issue. If people call, there isn't really an after hours ability to make a complaint, but we would receive them and then they'd get, a follow-up phone call and directed to where to go next. We do have our web service as well, so we do get people who can submit something at any time. I know I do get an alert and the bylaw officer would get an alert of something received, but typically those wouldn't be dealt with right away. We'd probably address them the following day during regular business hours.
Thanks, Scott.
Thanks. Council, okay?
Just,
Councilor McKay.
thank you. Just a quick, have you had any news about a bear wandering around town?
Not to my knowledge, we haven't had any phone calls about bears. No.
Okay. Okay, we're just going to continue on here. So thank you, Scott. Update and refresher on the zoning bylaw 2022. Scott, the floor is yours again.
Thank you. I'll just work to share my screen with everybody.
And I understand that in this, you're be highlighting any of the changes that have been made.
Yep, I can do that. Thank you. So this is the district secretary zoning bylaw number 2022. We've been working on it for quite a while, and just on the left side, you can kind of see the makeup of the zoning bylaw. So there's the definitions. More definitions, the better. Industrial use would be one definition we had in our bylaw. So we actually came up with a number of industrial uses, and you could say the same for commercial uses and other things. Just makes them more specific and easier for someone who's interested. And they really form we'll say the backbone of the bylaw. And then there's the general regulations. That'd be the next part of the bylaw that would speak to kind of those definitions and in general terms, the regulations. So they might have things about setbacks, what could be permitted in setback areas, and other things. And then there's the zones. So we have 23 zones in this bylaw. The existing bylaw, I think, has 51 zones. And so we tried to narrow down the zones. There were a lot of very site-specific zones. When this project started, it was a consultant was involved, and I think they actually expanded the number of zones. And the one thing is you can't have a zone in a bylaw that doesn't apply to a property. So we were able to get rid of some zones like that and then merge some zones just to make it easier. I mean, for staff that works with it every day, I look at the bylaw every single day, and it's nice to have fewer zones, lots of definitions, and then you can give people better advice. And then within those zones, there'd be zone specific regulations or site specific regulations. So in some of the zones, like a residential zone, it might have some regulations that would say about setbacks or things like that, or the different uses on the property. And then there'd also be some site specific regulations. So instead of creating a whole new zone for a property, and then we could create a site specific regulation. One might be a property that has, an extra dwelling unit on it or something. So it would say this specific property can have 3 dwelling units or 4 dwelling units. But there are actually very few in the bylaw. And then the next one would be the floodplain regulations, the parking regulations, and the map. So you can see the map on the right-hand side. All those colors correspond to one of the 23 zones. You can look at your zone, find your color, and then, you have a list of uses in the zones. If you're wondering about the use, you can go back to the definition, and you can find the information on your property, what's permitted, and the density on the property. Here's the list of the 23 zones. They go from agriculture, which is the largest property size, all the way down to the different areas where we've zoned the water. So group, bridge, commercial marina. I think we're missing one at the bottom. Maybe not. No, we have house commercial C6. That's a zone that was added kind of as we developed the bylaw. And then we also came up with MUR2, which is a seasonal accommodation. So that one was added as we develop the bylaw. So the zoning process to date, the bylaw got first reading August 11th, 2021. And then we referred it out to the different referral agencies and started our community engagement or continued our community engagement. And then on May 11th, 2022, council gave the bylaw second reading as amended, and we continued with that engagement. We had a couple open houses in this room. We had some open houses dealing with specific issues like short-term rentals. And then kind of throughout the summer, last summer and this summer, we had a number of engagement things for, we had housing ones. We had, some panels on zoning. We've had some parks ones. We've had panels on zoning. So we've probably gone out to community 8 to 10 times over the last year and a bit on the bylaw. So then we brought it to council for public hearing and second reading as amended and third reading on September 28th, 2022. So we foresaw the next step as being referring it out to the Ministry of Transportation and getting some feedback from Ministry of Transportation on that. Council did receive some additional feedback on short-term rentals, one property in particular. So we've thought it would be appropriate to bring it back. So we're looking at December 2022, likely for second reading as amended, another public hearing, and then third reading, and then we'll refer it out to the Ministry of Transportation Infrastructure. They need to approve it because anything within 800 meters of a numbered highway, they would have to approve that zoning change, and the whole town is within that. So that approval is required, and we have had some meetings with Ministry of Transportation because when we bring it back on December 14th, we want Ministry of Transportation to be very happy with it. Short-term rentals, that's been an issue that, most people have been interested in. I think we probably after the second reading as amended in May, we probably got our most engagement. And then that was through short-term rentals. We had an open house just on short-term rentals. People were very interested. So the way we're looking at it, it's an issue where we want to do two things. We want to level the playing field with commercial operators and the short-term rental operators. And the other part is we want to address issues that people have been having in the residential neighborhoods where, they bought into a residential spot and also someone's doing short-term rental next door, and there's a little bit of conflict there. So we just want to address that. So we decided to go with, we come up with 3 definitions: dwelling unit, which is essentially a house or living space for a family, a sleeping unit, which would be a commercial accommodation. And we're saying for rental on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis, not subject to a tenancy agreement. And then we came up with short-term rental, and that means using a dwelling unit as a sleeping unit. So using a residential unit as a commercial unit. What we did was, so in the R1 and the CR2 zone, we used it as as right now in those zones, you can have a single family dwelling. You can have a duplex, or anybody can have a single family dwelling with a suite in it. So we kept that the same, where you're going to be allowed 2 dwelling units in our residential zones, or you can have 1 dwelling unit and 1 sleeping unit. So the density will stay the same, and we're trying to address that conflict of residential commercial use by having, if you have 1 dwelling unit, where if you live in the home, you can have 1 sleeping unit where you can rent one of the units out. So people are usually better behaved if the person renting it is next door. They'll also address parking, noise, that type of thing. We also feel that'll help with with housing. So there's a need for housing in Sycamoose, and we felt that we appreciate the commercial uses and bringing people to town. We felt that if 1 unit was being used as a dwelling unit for a family, and the other unit was being used as a sleeping unit for commercial use, and that would be a good balance as well for balancing residences and tourists. And then in the multi-unit residential zones, We had lots of interaction with the different buildings or stratas. Some of them, it was very clear, their bylaws didn't allow it. The people that we communicated with, they didn't want short-term rentals, and the buildings are set up where they weren't really didn't really go with short-term rentals. So that was the MUR1, multi-unit residential, short-term rentals, not a permitted use. And then the other zone we came up with for multi-unit residential is MUR2. We called it seasonal accommodation. And this is where short-term rentals are permitted use. So unlike the residential zone where you have to have that residential component and the commercial component, in this zone, the MUR1, short-term rentals aren't allowed, so only the residential component. And our MUR2 seasonal accommodation, you can have either the residential use or the commercial use, but you don't have to have the dual purpose use, I guess.
Just to clarify, Scott, just back on the R1 zone before we move on.
Yep.
So everybody understands. So you can have a sleeping unit, short-term rental, as long as you have a dwelling unit as well. You cannot rent out a standalone. R1 doesn't allow you, if you only have one dwelling unit, so a house without a suite, you cannot rent that out,
That's correct.
correct? Yeah, just so everybody's.
And right now we have an R1C zone, and that allows you to have a single family dwelling. And you can have like a carriage house, or you can have a granny flat, or a secondary suite. So you can have a number of different things in that R1C zone. And we've just rolled that into the R1 zone. So now you can have single family dwelling and a carriage house, and either one of those could be the dwelling unit or the commercial unit. So if you have those two units, you can, one would have to be residential, and then you have we'll say the privilege of having the secondary suite.
And is there any opportunity to rezone to allow an R1 and a single family, just one unit to allow it a short-term rental, or is that not even an option with any of our zones?
We don't have it as an option in any of
Okay.
Someone can always bring an idea to council. It's an option.
Like the housing.
Then just a little further on the short-term rentals. So in the general regulations of the bylaw, we have some regulations on short-term rentals. And a short-term rental would be subject to these conditions. So you'd need a valid business license. Off-street parking must be required in accordance with Schedule D, which is essentially one parking spot for every bedroom. So you need two for the single family dwelling, and then one parking spot for every bedroom that you're renting out. And then local responsible person, we have to have somebody who can respond within an hour to come and address any issues you're having. Hopefully the goal would be that, the neighbor's having a noise complaint, have the phone number of the person they call that person first, and that person responds to the noise complaint or the parking complaint or whatever else the issue is. If we got a phone call, if our bylaw officer got a phone call after hours, he would refer it to the local responsible person. He would bring out putting it back on the owner and that local responsible person to address the issues. And then the other one is that the maximum occupancy would be limited to 2 adults per bedroom. So for every bedroom that's available, only 2 adults would be able to rent the space, and we wouldn't be regulating the number of children. And I think that's really to address the parking issue where, 4 trucks show up with 4 people in it, and they just all pile into the house. You end up with, just more noise and bigger parking issues. And so then the next step is to amend the business license bylaw. So we have some amendments to the business license bylaw that we've ready to bring to council. So work on bringing those to council in the new year. Kind of the direction we had from council previously was that we didn't want to start enforcing these things till we have all these rules in place. So right now, short-term rentals essentially illegal in most residential zones. So yeah, staff has held off on enforcing those. We respond to complaints. We have received some complaints, but yeah, we're kind of giving a grace period until we start enforcing those, until we have our business bylaw regulations in place.
And correct me, and this will be happening in line with the adoption of the zoning bylaw
Correct.
anticipated in early 2023.
Right. Yeah. And then the proposed amendments. So since the September 28th, we've just kept communicating with people. And then we've got some response back from Ministry of Transportation on this. So these are the amendments that we are considering for that second reading as amended. And then third reading, 202 Highway 97, that's Buena Vista, as you're going south. Ministry of Transportation asked us to add a special regulation limiting the parcel coverage to 60%. So right now it's 60%, and we're actually in that zone that they are in. We're moving it up to 80%, and they asked for that property because it has direct access to the highway. They've asked the density be reduced a little bit just to maintain the current development potential. 1033 McLean McPherson. That's if you were go to the end of McLean McPherson and take a right before you get to the parking lot, that it's quite a big property. It has a special zone that limits them. Well, it actually quite a high density, but they had a proposal for 41 single family dwelling lots. The new zone and actually their existing zone would actually give them a much higher, I think it would be 190 single family dwelling lots. Ministry of Transportation asked us to limit that to 100, so that'll keep the vehicle trips down, and the owners should be happy with that. 1101 and 1125 Riverside. Those are two properties on Riverside. Currently, one is a industrial use. The other one is it's being used to store boats on. So they're both zoned R1 and R2. We had them to go to C3, the commercial zone, the waterfront commercial zone, and Ministry of Transportation has asked that those remain R1, just because the amount of uses could go in that C3 zone, could generate, they look at 100 peak trips per hour. So they felt that if we don't have an application, and we agreed with them, if we don't have an application now, no one's going forward, we just keep them as the R1 zone and then address that in the future. Another one, highway commercial in the highway commercial zone. So that's the C2 zone, adding storage facility as a permitted use. So right now, warehouse is in the new zoning bylaw, warehouse is a permitted use. The old zoning bylaw, mini storage is permitted use. So we'd be putting that storage facility, which would essentially be a self-contained group of buildings for lockers for rent or storage personal goods. So mini storage or a warehouse would be allowed in that C2 commercial zone. And then then number 5, that's 326 Mirror Lake Lane. That's the legacy. So this was the one that council received additional information on. So at the time of third reading or second reading in September, staff had recommended be MUR1. That would not allow, it was MUR2, and that would allow short-term rentals. That was amended to put it to MUR2, which would not allow short-term rentals. So in the meantime, we had received additional information. I believe council has been privy to that letter we received and the minutes from their meeting where they voted, and the majority voted that they would prefer to stay as MUR1 and not allow short-term rentals. So I'm willing to answer questions on this, and if council wants to give me some direction on MUR1, MUR2, then we can take that into consideration and present a recommendation to council for the next meeting, which would be on the 14th. And just the different responses. So these are the different agencies that we referred the zoning bylaw to and what we received back. We did make some of the changes that were recommended, and some of the changes we didn't make. We didn't receive response from all the referral agencies. But yeah, we're still waiting for the response from Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure. So the official response. And then council gives the bylaw third reading. We can bring it back to Ministry of Transportation, have it approved, and then bring it back to council for approval in 2023.
Awesome. Thank you, Scott. Council, any questions? Okay,
I just have I guess, a process question. Is this the forum and time that we discussed? MRU1 or MRU2 for legacy?
So,
Like you said, you're asking for direction from council. Is this?
so I'd say that you can have a discussion, but you can't make a decision as a council on anything at this meeting.
Committee at all.
Right.
So that will be considered at the public hearing on December 14th, but direction in terms of whether there's an appetite to go back to the original MUR2, which allowed it, or to leave it as it is prior to us bringing that again next.
Right.
The next meeting would be appreciated. So direction doesn't mean a decision is made.
Thank you.
Can I have a, Madam Chair?
go ahead, Councillor Bailey.
Thanks. Sorry, it's a little disconnected here on my end, but yeah, I just have a question for Scott. Is Mara Lake Lane the only one currently designated in that MUR2?
No, it's not. Yeah, depending, like, I think that, if you go next door, Grandview Shores is MUR2. The ones on the red roofs that are across the channel, those are MUR2. I'd have to look at what on the channel are MUR2. White Pines is MUR2, I believe. So yeah, you can see the ones that are orange with the yellow spots. Those are MUR2.
Okay, so there is developments that are not permitted to have short-term rentals.
Sorry, what's your question?
Well, no, okay, I guess I'm going back to my recollection. I mean, the last council took legacy out of being a permitted use in terms of short-term rentals because you had a delegation, you had people come forward and say, we do not want to be allowed to have short-term rentals. So council at the time took it out. And I thought that, and correct me if I'm wrong, I thought that created another, because up to that point, any multi-residential unit, you were just going to allow them to make their own decisions through their bylaws, through their strata bylaws. Am I reading that wrong?
No, I think you have it right. And we'll say most strata councils, most properties, it's probably 50-50 whether they want them or not. So the ones that we felt the majority of people wanted short-term rentals, we recommended they were zoned MUR2. The ones that we felt the majority didn't want short-term rentals, we left them as MUR1. And then we looked at each of the stratas as well and met with probably 5 or 6 of the stratas and yeah, had discussions with them and made a recommendation based on what we felt was most appropriate for, the building type, where they are in town and what, the people who lived in them wanted based on their bylaws and how they're being used at the time. Zoning bylaw tries to capture what exists, a snapshot of what exists now, and then also what the efficiency plan would allow. So in a lot of those areas where it's MUR2, it's designated for, a commercial use or a mixed resort use.
Okay. Okay, well, so maybe then you can explain to me the rationale of, and this is maybe opening up a can of worms, you've already gone down that road, what the rationale is for us not just leaving it up to the stratas.
Not to,
Well, I mean, the strata can determine if they want to allow short-term rentals or not.
Yeah, and part of it was based on I guess we're looking at the existing use. And then what the official community plan has for that area. So if it's, a high density residential use, then we kind of left it as that residential use. If the OCP says it's a commercial resort use, then we said, okay, we'll allow it to be short rentals. Most of the commercial resorts, people buy them as a strata. They spend some time in them, but then they also make them available through rental pools or friends and family and Airbnb type uses.
Okay, thanks.
Anyone else have any questions? Go ahead, Councillor Bushel.
Scott, with the Legacy in the Grandview area, there was a lot of concern about the traffic. And when I remember when that development went ahead, they allowed, I can't remember, two cars for every unit. And they have that in the parkade, but we're finding that the road is always busy and plugged up and they're blaming the strata people. But if you look at the vehicles that are parked there, they're not so much strata people, they're like strata rental people, they're actual strata people. What can we do to, I know it's, we provided the development permit, they provided the parking, but now they're overflowing onto the road and they're kind of indicating that it's our problem on the road for parking. What can we do to, I guess calm the residents there, that it's not so much our problem, it's their own parking problem.
So through the business license bylaw and the zoning and the business license bylaw, for every unit, every bedroom you rent, you have to have a parking spot. So we're hoping that, through the business licensing, someone applies for business license, they're going to say they have 2 parking spots. We're going to ask them to show us where their 2 parking spots are. And, hopefully that will address it in a normal way.
Yeah.
But if somebody, what if 4 cars do show up? And yeah, we're going to be back to that parking issue. So we can address it through our parking bylaw or through our business license bylaw. If we can identify that, someone is parking on the street more often than not, we can address it through our business license bylaw and go through that and say, what, we can pull your business license if you don't solve your own parking issue.
Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor.
To the chair, Scott, the parking along the road there seems to be mostly vehicles with towing units. They're usually long vehicles, and I don't know how they would fit in to the underground parking in either one of these buildings. But that seems to be sort of the most common to see along there is, somebody hooked up to a unit. So they're extra long. I'm not proposing a solution. I'm just making an observation. So I don't know how that will impact on being able to deal with those, because it happens, it's seasonal, but it happens in both seasons because they're always hauling something. Either snowmobiles or boats or sea-doos or whatever. Anyways, I don't know what the solution is. That's an observation. And that is difficult to fit into parking.
Okay, anyone else councillors have any other comments? I would just like some clarification on a couple of things. The Legacy is now or is proposed to be an MR1, which is no short-term rentals permitted. However, right next door at Grandview is an MR2, which is short-term rentals. So if they were both, this is just, a question and information. If they were both in an MR1, even though one is a strata, or they're both a strata, but if you are a strata, do you not have the ability as a strata council to make your own decisions if you're short-term renters or not? So even if they're MR1 or MR2, is it not the council that drives that decision as opposed to the zoning in that case?
Right. So our bylaw would, we can make a zone that says, yeah, they're permitted or they're not, but their council can do that as well. So Grandview Shores, their council allows short-term rentals. They have regulations in place internally to regulate short-term rentals. The Legacy, their bylaws don't allow short-term rentals, and they could vote to allow short-term rentals. I think we have the indication from them that the strata voted and they didn't support the short-term. So you're right. They always have the ability to regulate internally as well.
Correct, thank you. And just to add on to the parking issues, can the strata also enforce that? Of course, you get a parking spot with each bedroom. Can they also enforce anything over that? Has to be taken to, I mean, we have lots of folks in town that make a living on parking and storage. So could there be something written into that, or can there be, you know, some sort of a solution for them to move those vehicles? Because I agree, the Legacy went into a bit of a traffic snarl there. So perhaps the strata can direct their renters or owners, if they've got over vehicles, to find storage for them.
So right now in our business license, if someone is applying for a home-based business and they do have a unit, then we make a condition of the business license that there's no on-street parking. So we say that we can continue to say that, but that does mean people aren't going to. I would think it would be very difficult for a strata to say you can't park on the street in front if they don't own it, right? However, our bylaw does speak to the length of time someone can park, but you know, you can always move your vehicle, rotate it in and out and get around that. But it certainly, yeah, I think you'd have to ask a lawyer if a strata could actually regulate use of a on-street park.
Thank you. Any other questions? No? Okay, we'll move on. Okay, we're going to the presentation on snow and ice control policy, and Daryl, you are up.
Thanks.
Snow and ice.
Be patient. Don't have the PowerPoint.
I think so. Okay, snow and ice control. Just thought I would take a little time and we'll do a little bit of an overview of what we do out there. It's that time of year, and you guys as being council will probably get some phone calls and hear some comments, have some answers. So hopefully we can kind of go through our policy, because that's what our whole program is hinged on, our policy. And we'll talk about what it is we do out there and when we do it, how we do it. And we'll take a little bit of time at the end and compare with some of the neighboring communities around us. And so with any policy, we have to consider a whole bunch of things. So there's a lot of things baked into the cake. We have to measure what we're up against, what the environment's like, what kind of snow we get here in terms of, you know, amounts of snow, what we have for resources, what we have for equipment. Are there contractors available? All that kind of stuff. We weigh that all out with what the expectation is of council and of the residents and what industry best standards might be. Frozen.
No.
When I should have warmed it up in the granny flat.
You skipped one.
We skipped a slide.
I did. Okay, so when we look at what we're up against, we start with, what do we get for snowfall? So over the 10-year average from Environment Canada, we're looking at about 6 feet of snow a year. That kind of surprised me a little when I dug that up, but you break out the winter months and it makes sense. We've got 73 snow days on average here in Sycamoose. So it's a long season. We get quite a bit of it over 5 months. The temperature's nice and balmy at -3, but that brings its own challenges with freeze thaw cycles and heavy snow. So we gear up, we get ready for a big snowfall, and for us, it's just about having the right attitude, having the right guys. And that's a typical Wednesday for us. So this is what we do out in the field. We plow and we provide traction control on all the district roads. I've underlined district because, you know, inevitably we get calls and people want a laneway done or a driveway or a shared driveway. When we do the district roads, that's what we do. We don't go onto private property to do that kind of stuff. I've highlighted all sidewalks. A lot of communities will put the sidewalks onto the property owners. We do them all in town. We look after our own city-owned buildings and their parking lots, and we look after the boat launches. So when we're not plowing or sanding, we're either pulling away our stockpiles as needed, clearing hydrant locations. We've got 228 hydrants throughout town. They all need to be cleared. If there's 6 feet of snow, we wouldn't find anything. We maintain sight lines at intersections. We help out any way we can with people that are having snow problems. So this is kind of a daunting map, but obviously, see, this is Sycamoose. We'll break it down. The green is the priority one. That's the most important. Those are the key roads that we get at first thing in the morning. We've got the downtown core. We have the entrances into town. And we have the hills. So those little subsets on the side there represent the hills. We employ a few different pieces of equipment and we go after the green. First thing in the morning, we're going after the green. And then we'll transition into the blue and get our priority 2, primarily the collectors through town, so the arterials and collectors. And then when the guys get their routes done and they all have designated routes, they work together and get through the priority 3 residential. We do a cleanup there. And on a typical snowfall, we'll get through it in a day. It's a long day, but they can usually get it done in a day. That's really how we do it. We've got some really incredible guys. We have Everett here today, the team lead, and he does an amazing job with this crew. That's his permanent crew behind him. That's his crew of permanent guys behind him. We've got Garrett, we've got Steve on the left, and then Riley's on the right. Riley's with us for the second winter, so he's the newest one. The other 2 have been here 6, 7 years. Yeah. So they're well versed at what they're doing, and the captain keeps them on track. I think it's probably worth mentioning right now that you know, Everett committed a while ago to working really hard to get these guys cross-trained. Because if you look at our full-time snow clearing crew for the whole district, it's not a big crew. Like we've got 4 guys and there's, you know, got 90 kilometers to cover. So if we're down a man, it's a big impact. And we have to have the ability to jump into different equipment, do different things, right? So guys are really good at that. Here's our 2 big pieces. And I call it the king and the queen on our chessboard. We got the loader on the left. Everett's going to say something if I get it wrong. We got 275 horsepower, 14-foot blade, and it's a 4-way blade, so it clears a tremendous amount of snow. That unit will go out in the morning with the studded tires and go through the downtown core, and it does just a remarkable job of cleaning stuff up. We have a sidewalk machine that jumps out in the morning, kicks everything off on the main street, and he'll clean that up behind. So the downside with the loader is that we can't sand as we go. So it's a little limited that way in terms of an overall piece. And it can't get into some of the really tighter spots where we have, poured concrete, pork chops and stuff outside the parking lots. But other than that, it's an amazing machine. Clears a lot of snow. Biggest challenge with it is where to put the snow. So we have to be strategic in finding places to pile it. The queen on the chessboard is the tandem truck. It's a 2019 Freightliner. And we've got a 12-foot blade on that thing. It's a two-way blade. There's a blade underneath it that you can't, but this is an underbelly plow. And so between those two blades, it can do a tremendous job cleaning up through the residential on the flat areas. We hold about 10 yards of sand and salt in the back, and it probably does about 60 or 70% of our sanding. Another couple of key pieces, we've got the Kubota. You'll see Steve in this tractor. He's cleaning up intersections. He can do small runs. He can do cul-de-sacs or small flat areas, but he's really used on the intersections. He's got a whole route to work with the tandem. When he gets that done, he goes into the residential area. The 2-ton is a key piece, and we're dead in the water without it. It does our hills. So Riley's been learning that route really well. And again, we've got an articulating blade, and we try to pull as we go and clear driveways as best we can. So this little girl will come out on days when we can get by with one sidewalk machine. We'll throw the extra body because we have 2 temporary employees that work with us in the winter, and they'll either jump in the sidewalk machines or we'll split up. One will go into the sidewalk machine and the other will go into the 3/4 ton. That's our materials. We start early ordering everything in. I mean, we get snow now. It's middle of November, probably 6-8 weeks ago. We were getting in cutting edges and ordering material and going through the equipment and switching over the trucks, and like there's a lot of work leading up to it. There's the Kubota route. So I'll just touch on our triggers. So 2 to 5 centimeters on the ground, kicks the sidewalk machine into action. It'll go clear that. So if we get an inch or 2, we're clearing it all. We get all the sidewalks done. Get a little half-yard hopper in the back. So it's a lot of trips back to the yard to get salt and sand. And we'll mix the salt and sand to make it a hot mix on a warmer morning, or we'll go straight sand on a cold day. So we're mixing that up all the time. And so the sidewalks, we're committing in our policy to have the sidewalks done 48 hours at the end of the storm. And just for interest's sake, 2 to 5 is the same trigger for our roads as well. And we commit to getting them done in 24 hours by the end of the storm. So there's the sidewalk route. Again, same idea. Green is where we go first. It's the downtown core, and then we'll hit the peripheral sidewalks and trails. When they're done that, we have a hand route. I just took one picture of a page out of our book. They have quite a list of places to go and get steps to clear and different things to do. So
Nice winter coat.
not ever.
Okay.
So some key points to take away from the snowplow policy is 2.5 or 2 to 5 centimeters triggers our plowing, whether it's sidewalks or roads. 24 hours at the end of the storm, we're done with the roads. Sidewalks, 48 hours. Windrows at the base of the driveway is something you'll all hear about. It's just a function of plowing the road. Our primary goal is to clear the roads so that, pedestrians and vehicles can travel, emergency vehicles can get by. We have to put the snow somewhere. We don't rack it in the middle of the road like some big cities. We don't have the equipment to do that. We take it to the curb line, we take it to the edge. And, some of it gets left in front of the driveways. So our tolerance at this moment is 0.5 meters, which is quite a lot. We're talking 18 inches of snow. And I will be before council tonight asking that we move that tolerance down. And I I can argue that there's no impact financially to us. We're going in there and we're clearing it if it's over a foot anyway. So I just think it would bring it more in line with best practice and standards around the different communities. So that'll come up in a bit. So if we do a little quick comparison with some of our neighbors, I had trouble getting some information from a couple other ones. So I think I threw Chase into the next screen, but it doesn't matter. Triggers for plowing. You know, Enderby does pretty well. They're pretty much the same as us, but not quite as good as us. They are the best in terms of arms. I think it's 8. There's a little camera thing going on. I went upstairs. I jumped back onto the Armstrong website. And it is 8, but residential, it's 12. So they suck. So Revy's 10, which is a lot. That's a big amount of snow. So we're out there quick. I mean, if we were going to improve that level of service, we'd have to look at a way of catching it before it. So 2 to 5. So it's really, really good. And then in terms of doing sidewalks, Enderby puts it on the owners. Whoever owns the property, they look after the sidewalk. The driveway windrows, they have no capacity to do that either. So, you know, nothing against Enderby. They get out good and early like us, but they don't do very much. Armstrong, we know they get out really late. They have the same standard as us for the sidewalks. 48 hours, they'll get them done. So will we. 30 centimeters for the windrows at the base of the driveway. And if it's beyond that, they'll clear it within 5 hours. I'm going to propose later tonight, we move ours down to 0.35, which gives us a little buffer, 14 inches. And, you know, we probably don't need to quantify it, but I'll tell you just through how we do this, it'll be done within the hour as when we plow. So yeah, and Revy, obviously they do everything, but you should see how much money they spend. You look at Revy's budget, it's 1.8 million a year for their snow removal. They contract a whole bunch of stuff out. We're on pace this year to finish up around 130. These guys are budgeting these amounts. I know it doesn't really reflect that accurately because we have different kilometers. So go to the end. And if we're looking at what we spend per lane kilometer, obviously Revy's just through the roof. And we know that Armstrong, they sleep in, so they're going to save a bit of money. But you know, Enderby, we're doing a much better, I think, in terms of levels of service, other than the trigger points, and we're like 50% cheaper. So we're very close to Chase, actually. So yeah, so it sounds pretty perfect, but there are challenges with what we're doing. And the guys are super adept at working through things. This is one of our biggest challenges. It's the bench strength. We have like 4 incredibly solid permanent employees, but it makes us kind of thin. If we lose a piece of equipment, we're down 25% of our force out there. Same with the body. If we're down a body, it makes it really, really hard. So we try to really work on cross training, and we work around that stuff. Snow storage is a very real problem for us, especially in the downtown core. So when I talk about the loader moving tremendous amounts of snow, there's strategic places to put it, but they're starting to disappear. So we have to just be mindful going forward. If we're, playing a part in approving things or designing things, snow storage is really, really important. Fleet maintenance is always a challenge. We have a great PM program. I know Everett's got a binder full of, he could tell you when the last time the 3/4 ton got an oil change. Everything's up to date. So we stay on the PM stuff, and the guys are pitching in and doing servicing of our own. We don't have a mechanic. So we keep that stuff running the best we can. The other side of the equation is, we need to make sure we have a fleet that's going to be able to support these guys. So that's, I guess, on me to identify the things that we're really, really going to need. And so far we've been lucky, and sometimes we haven't. So supply delays are another big one these days. I don't know what it took to get the cutting edges in. I think we were looking at about 2 or 3 months before. So I thought it might be kind of useful. I get asked all kinds of crazy questions when I pick up the phone. I never know what I'm gonna hear. I thought I'd share some of them. Then we'll just walk through them. Okay, so it's a good question. How come the plow went by and the plow wasn't down? So, valid. So I would suggest if you get that question and you might hear that comment, the guy that puts on the most miles through town is our tandem truck. He does the collectors and he goes into the residential. He's the most visible truck we have out there. And he's out there all day long. He's got an underbelly plow as well, and you can't really see it. It's like a reverse plow. So when you got your cutting edge on the front plow, you're actually biting in at about 45, 55 degrees. The underbelly's like a backwards C shape that it just kind of drags the snow. You don't really see it. So it's probably what's going on. He's probably plowing with the underbelly plow, or maybe he's just sanding, or maybe the truck got stolen and somebody. This is a good question. It doesn't happen often. This is actually pretty rare. Why are you guys sanding? It hasn't even snowed yet. So a big part of what keeps Everett up at night and what I watch for all the time, we're always watching the forecast, what's happening. There's times when you're going to have really wet conditions coming in, and then the forecast is for like incredibly cold later in the day. So you're going to just plummet. So in those events, when you have bare asphalt, warm asphalt, and then it starts to snow and melt or rain and then freeze and then gets and set up, you're going to have like an ice pavement bond that you'll never break. And so you see that on the highways a lot because they like spraying that brine, and that dilutes and it makes ice and it freezes and you have that bond. They fight it all winter. So sometimes we'll get out there with a little bit of chemical and we'll put the sand and the salt down at the intersections and then, bring on the snow. When we go to plow, it lifts it. So. Why did you leave snow at the base of my driveway? So kind of covered that one already. And I want to work on that tolerance level that we can maybe tighten that up a little bit. Why do you put more snow on our side of the street compared to the other side? I get that a lot. So there's a couple of reasons that happens. One of it would be routing. So you don't want to come out onto the highway and take a left. You always want to sweep right to keep the snow coming off the plow in tight. So that will dictate how you approach that road. So you might have to take more on one side so that you're just minimizing what you take out onto the highway. So I know I think it's on Gillis, we get that question quite a lot. Another reason would be we have a monolithic sidewalk. So we have to pull all the snow across the road because we can't cover the sidewalk. So it happens. How come Aunt Judy Street gets plowed better than mine? She might live in a priority 1. At the end of the day, when we get through the whole town, all the roads will look the same. We get down bare asphalt if we can, everything's sanded. But if we have a prolonged event, we will go back to priority 1 or 2 before we get to 3. And the guys can only work 12 hours. We might be back in the morning to finish. So there's cases where Judy might get better service, it might appear. So the snow piles are so high, I can't see around the corner. Can you help? The answer is definitely yes. So this is a flag. If I get this call, I want to know what corner. So if it's snow that we put up and it's an intersection and there's somebody, that could pull out and get killed, we make it a priority. We'll fly over and we will take care of the pile immediately. If it's somebody backing out of their driveway and they just can't see, it's probably because they've been snow blowing it all winter long and now they can't see. We'll put it on a list and we'll get there with the bucket when we have time. Why are you pushing snow on my lawn? So important to know where your property line is. And a lot of people don't. A lot of people think edge of the road and anything past there, they own it. And usually they don't. The road right away usually extends 4 or 5 meters into the property. So it's our swale, it's our lawn. And so when they get mad and say, who's going to fix it? Well, we'll put them on a list, but it's usually our own lawn that we're tearing. when we try not to. Why is the highway so icy? We touched on that. I'm not a believer in brine, not in this climate anyway. And then my favorite question, where can I bring donuts for the crew? And it happens a lot. Like, I don't know, last year, 10 times maybe. Yeah, lots of donuts and muffins and coffees and all kinds of stuff for the guys. So it kind of, it's not a good metric to measure things. You get a sense people are happy out there. I know the guys do a tremendous job. Excellent. That's all I've got.
So we should maybe just take that snippet, that video, and put it on our site. So when folks have questions about plowing, they just click on you and you can do the whole presentation. Council, any questions?
I think that would be one of my questions is, can we, with our new media and our communication, like every time Daryl speaks, I've been to a few things where he's speaking and I learn, I've been here 50 years and I learned an immense amount of stuff. And I have a whole new recognition for who's on the team and what they do. And I mean, you talked about checking the water meter things where the guys have to go around on a regular basis at one of our meetings. I didn't know this. And I don't think a lot of people understand what they're doing. And I know everybody's got a lot of work to do, but it actually would be cool, especially if you navigated it, that maybe with Facebook or a community page that we had an ongoing of, here's what we're doing today. And we've got the half naked guy or the little snowflake truck. And that opens it up so people actually understand what's going on and it's fun and informative. And we're reaching out. And so they don't need to phone that they're going, or they're in ask yous and someone's complaining. And then that person saw the clip and they're like, oh, well, actually. So I don't know. I know Sarah has lots of work already. But it would be interesting to see that.
Yeah.
Where, you know, communication was a big thing. And I think that's communicating.
I was only half kidding when I said
Okay.
that. I think it is a good snippet to, you know, put that kind of information on. Because all of these folks here right now know, but you're right, the folks that aren't online or aren't checking the site, they don't know. So it could be as simple as that. And Sarah, you put it on Facebook or Instagram, you know.
Yeah, just a little teeny clip.
So the residents do have it. Are there any more questions? Go ahead, Councilor.
No question, it's just great statistics there, Daryl, you know, with the other committees and no, thank you and Everett and their team, your team. You guys do a great job. Thanks very much.
Yeah, and I would like to thank you as well. You guys do a great job. And I know that you're very, very fast at what you do and you get it done quickly. I have literally been cast on the highway with Everett driving a loader. So I know he's on a mission. So, and Everett, thank you to you and your team as well. You guys do a great job. So thank you very much. All right. Thanks, guys. Moving on. Okay, more fun stuff. Kelly's going to take the floor now and talk about our 2023 meeting format options.
Perfect. Okay, thank you, Mayor Anderson. And I am just so proud of Daryl. He got 4 rounds of applause.
It was the naked guy.
I'm not even gonna get one, but that's fine. I'm happy. That was an amazing presentation on like just a piece of what you guys work on. So thanks for doing that. So mine will be pretty quick. I just wanted to get a flavor for council and their schedule moving forward as we move and publishing out some timelines in the 2023 year, if there was an appetite to move some meetings around. So what we had previously done, we normally have had the Planning and Development Committee meeting on the same days as council, and they were at 1. What we're doing is we're moving those to alternating weeks. So then information from those meetings, tweaks can be made, and then they can go on the next council meeting. So things continue to move. So we have some time to push some stuff forward in the day on council meeting days. So previously we started our committee of the whole at 5 and the in-camera. It's not such a big deal when the in-camera time starts because we change the time of the in-camera depending on what's in camera. Sometimes we have 15 minutes, sometimes it's 2 hours, sometimes it's an hour. So the in-camera piece is not such a worry. It's more the committee of the whole and the regular meeting. So we were doing 5 and 7 o'clock. So it was quite late and 2 hours of open discussion. Really, the goal, I feel, of council listening to everyone is to have open, transparent conversation. So in cameras are great and there's a time and a place, but to have more information and discussion in a committee of the whole. Option 2, we start, which is what we have done today. We started at 2 p.m. the committee of the whole. That gives 3 hours. So, and in there would be a recess or a break. Not here, between the 2 o'clock and the 5 o'clock meeting. So we'd start our in-camera prior to, whether that's at 1 or 12. Today we started it at 1. Go into our committee of the whole, give 3 hours, and then take a recess either after an hour, after a 2.5, depending on how long it takes us to go through the committee of the whole. We can have a break, and then we start the regular meeting at 5. So that's what we're doing today. And then another option, which we have done in the past as well, is we've had the committee of the wholes at 9 o'clock. Talked and had open discussion for as long as we needed to. Adjourned that meeting, that committee of the whole, and then we've reconvened in the afternoon for the public regular meeting at 5 with the in-camera piece before. So I'm just really throwing this out to council to get their feelings. I know the next council meeting, we will start the committee of the whole earlier because there is more stuff going on. So really the question is do we want to move the committee of the whole to the morning, or do we want to leave it more in the afternoon?
Council, any comments?
Hi, it's Ian. I like option 2. That kind of works well for me.
Okay,
And I actually think it does allow people to attend as well.
thank you, Councillor McKay.
Yeah, thank you. I agree with Ian. I prefer option 2. I don't see any selection of days here anywhere though. Like a curl on Wednesdays.
Still Wednesdays.
What? Is that not an option of looking at what day?
Have we published the meeting date, days? I think we have done the dates. It's just the already. It's the times.
Option 2.
Anyone else? Go ahead, Councillor Evans.
I prefer to start at 3 p.m. myself. I can barely get here for 1 p.m. on Wednesdays, but that's just me. So whatever works best for the rest of the council.
Councillor Rich.
I like the earlier start because that gives me, an earlier time to be finished. So I like the number 2 for me, please.
Councillor Bushville.
Yeah, if you have a full-time job, it's tough to get away that early. So yeah, I'd prefer the afternoons. So I'm good with either in the afternoons.
Councillor Beach.
Same with me. I would take the afternoon, 1 p.m. Start would be the most ideal.
Okay, thank you. For me, option 2 works as well. So I think we've got a majority on that.
Okay, perfect. That's all. I was just seeking direction from this, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna, Sarah and I, over the next couple of meetings, are gonna play with where some items are on with the agenda and looking at best practice of other municipalities. And we're gonna modify kind of the order of some stuff within all the agendas. Looking today, we found actually, and it was great that we on the City of Salmon Arm agendas, they have a standing line item on their agenda, which is report of CSRD. So it's an opportunity that if there's something like that, whoever sits on the CSRD can talk about what's relevant to the rest of the rest of council, which is, I think, a piece that had been missing. So I think to have that standing item on there might be a good idea. So we're going to play with it, and we're going to do get everybody's blessing moving forward in terms of how we're changing it, and then we're going to do some changes to the bylaw, the council procedures bylaw. So just some treats to look forward to.
That sounds good. Just a couple of things as far as the CSRD report. I sit on that, so I can probably add that to my report. So we can just
And the other thing, while we're going through this process,
We have other than Malcolm, I think most of us are working counselors and mayor, so we have to be very cognizant of that. Our, employers are very flexible and allow us to, be here and there, but we have to be cognizant of time as well. Okay. Oh, good. Okay, let's move on. Mayor and council reports. Let's start with Councillor Bushel. Why don't you lead the way?
Thank you, through the chair. Yeah, it's been a while, I guess, since we really did a report, and I guess there's been lots on the go. I think the last one, I did attend the legacy project at Saskia did at the beach park. That was kind of very interesting with the artist, David Harder and the Saskia crew. So that was pretty interesting. I think I also did the virtual reality thing at the Red Barn uninterrupted, which is the salmon migration. That was pretty neat. Intended a nice retirement party for 3 of our long-term employees. That was a nice function and well done. And I congratulate all 3 of them. Went to the chamber dinner and auction the other night. That was a lot of fun. We had a great auctioneer there that made a lot of people laugh. And yeah, it was a really nice function. The chamber did a great job, and it was full house in the curling rink. It was pretty packed upstairs. So that was good. And yeah, just been busy with Scott, and I've been talking back and forth with some different development stuff and working with different developers in town. So yeah, it's been really good.
Awesome. Thank you. Councillor McCabe.
Thank you. Yeah, not much to report. I did attend that art opening that Saskia did, and that was good to understand the history behind that. Why they used apples in the artwork and the significance of that to Saskia. Attended an interagency meeting last week. I think Pam attended too. The only key thing out of that was there's some funding for advocacy for elder abuse, be it physical or financial or whatever. So I think Dan might report better than that on me. Siobhan and Councillor Rich and myself are looking at dates for our first council to council meeting with Splatson. So Sarah's helping us line that up. And our next housing committee meeting will be in January, I believe.
Excellent. Thank you.
Councillor Rich. First day on the job, so I have nothing to report.
Councillor Beach.
Yeah, I did, it is my first day on the job too, but I've already done a meeting with the Shuswap Watershed Council, just a brief introduction. Well, it wasn't supposed to be by Zoom, but I couldn't get on the Zoom, so it was by phone call, but anyways. And I've got a meeting scheduled for the 14th, so that's exciting. I did see uninterrupted. I didn't get to the Ask Yous opening. And the interagency, we held our first, well, no, it wouldn't have been our first fall interagency, but it was a very good one. And yes, it was Monica Crease from the crisis response team, speaking about the funding that's available for actually communities to set up these elder abuse programs. And she also encouraged SICMUS to begin their own little response group, because we do it at the resource center does a lot of that stuff, but apparently there's funding just designated for that. So she talked a bit about that and encouraged us to start our own CCR response group. So yeah, so it's always good.
Thank you, Councillor Beach. Councillor Evans.
Hello, everybody. Thank you. Through the chair. I attended my last library board meeting of my last term. And then got reelected, and then I was waiting very much forward to this meeting. It took a long time to get here. And I also have been meeting with different people, helping in the transition of our daycare from the resource center management to whoever is going to the next managing position of that. So that's what it's kept me busy. But other than that, I had a good time with my wife in California and a good break.
Awesome. Good.
Counselor Bailey.
Well, I got sworn in and I've been happily on vacation. So this is my first vacation in 5 years. So not much else to report other than it's nice and warm where I am.
Well, that's awesome. We're a little envious. As far as for me, I'm new to the job today as well, and I want to thank Sycamoose, of course, for choosing this team. It's been very busy, processes, new procedures, meeting new faces, and just working with the CSRD, one of our partners, and we're going to put more focus into that and our relationship with the CSRD. I too attended the Chamber Business Awards with the which was mostly about new businesses, and it's amazing how many new businesses there are in town that we probably didn't realize. I would suggest there's 30 that were attended, maybe even more. So that's pretty exciting. And also went to a meet and greet with our MLA, Craig Kylo, which is always fun and interesting. He's always got some important stuff to share with us. So that's always good. And attended the retirement party for Lauren, Mike, and Wendy. So congratulations to them. And I think that's it. And go ahead, Pam.
I just remembered what we've been through the last 2 days. We've been meeting with the rural care coordination of BC group, which is a group of doctors that are very passionate about rural medicine. They're very sort of high up on the ladder of advising the Joint Standing Committee about health issues and health implementation in all of our authorities. They've been doing rural site visits, and we had our site visit in the past 2 days. So your mayor attended, I did, Malcolm attended, and it was inspiring. It's awesome. They ask you all of the questions about what we're planning, how we've come to where we are now. We talked a lot about, so the plans going forward with the healing center, but they were very, I think, impressed with the engagement level of this council over the past 2 terms. Very obvious, and how well we're doing and how exciting all of the ideas are going forward. They shared a comparison with other communities that they had been into. And this is not my first experience meeting with them, because they were out in North Shuswap, and we work across the region. I have worked across the region in health. And so I attended that one as well as a partner. So it was just really exciting. All new kind of doctors that were here and people involved that were talking to us, but they were able to sort of share with us what they've learned from other site visits and how we compare. And they just had a lot of really positive stuff to say about what's going on in Sycamoose and what we're looking to do. So that's correct. The community should feel encouraged. And we will get a report back on sort of everything that they recorded on from us. And we had all our partners there at quite a few meetings, actually. We had a meeting with county and the first responders. Yeah. And then in the afternoon, another meeting. And then this morning was a breakfast at the Red Barn, and another 3 hours, 2.5 hours to talk with them and tell them what we need help with and what's working for us and what maybe we could do better. And yeah, it was awesome. Totally inspiring.
Thanks, thank you. Yes.
I can't believe I almost
Share it. Thank you. Once we get that report back, we can share.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so We are going to rise and report recommendation that the committee of the whole now rise and report. We're going to call a recess. Sorry, excuse me, I know. Oh, sorry. Yes, it's my bad. Oh, and I hate saying that too. I need a number on the recommendation that the committee of whole now rise and report. Thank you, Councillor Evans. Second. Thank you, Councillor Beach. Anyone opposed? No? Okay, carried. Now we're going into a recess. The meeting is called to recess, the time being 3:40. Meeting is convened the same time, correct?
So we'll reconvene at 5.
We'll reconvene at 5. I didn't need this line. We'll reconvene at 5. Thank you.
Well, Deb,
And Deb, you,
That's okay.
yeah, we can do it. No, doesn't have to be.
6:30?
Everybody want to just in the middle?
Sure. What do you want in your, to reconvene at 5 o'clock?
I didn't believe I nailed it.
At this portion of our public and statutory hearings begin. We have a temporary use permit, number 22-202-TUP 517 Main Street. At this hearing, council will consider temporary use permit 22-202-TUP to permit a temporary campground with RVs located at 517 Main Street, the Paradise Motel. The application will be introduced by staff, and staff will provide synopsis of the proposed temporary use permit. Following the introduction, I will open the floor to presentations from the public. The Development Services Manager will now provide a presentation on the application being considered. Scott will then invite the developer to share his presentation on the application. Go ahead, Scott.
Thank you, Mary. At this hearing, council will consider temporary use permit number 22-202-TUP to allow temporary campground with RVs located at 517 Main Street, which is the Paradise Motel. Public are invited to make presentations to the council and all persons who believe their interest in property affected by the proposed temporary use permit shall be given reasonable opportunity to be heard to present written submissions respecting matters contained in the proposed temporary use permit. Please direct all your comments to the chair. Members of the council may, if they wish, ask questions to you following your presentation. However, the main function of council is to listen to the views of the public. It is not the function of council at this hearing to make the merits of the proposal with individual citizens. Please observe these rules, and if you have any concerns with the manner in which the hearing is conducted, direct your comments to the chairperson. Everyone shall be given a reasonable opportunity to be heard at this hearing. No one will be or should feel discouraged or prevented from making his or her. If you'd like to make a presentation, raise your hand. If you're attending through Zoom to speak during the meeting, please click the hand icon. Raise the hand icon. The final opportunity to comment for the temporary use permit number 22-202-TUP will be during the hearing. Members of council are not permitted to receive further conditions after the close of the hearing. Again, please direct all your comments to the chair by raising your hand or electronically raising your hand to speak. I'll now provide a review of the temporary use permit number 202-TUP. On the screen, you can see the location of the property. It's located at the corner of Main Street and Paradise Avenue, and it's outlined in the black line. OCP designation is town center. Zoning is C1. In the current zone, motel is a permitted use, and there's a 22-unit motel on the property. And then this is the proposal for the temporary use permit. There's 15 campsites that will be serviced with water and power. Will be available May to September for temporary use. The temporary use permit will be for 1 year. Landscaping is being provided, and lighting is also addressed to the temporary use permit. And as you can see in the drawing, the location of the 15 campsites. They would gain access through Paradise, and then also at the back of the property that's the corner parcel. And they're the conditions of the temporary use permit. So the site will be developed in accordance with Schedule 2, the drawing you just saw. The campground will be used for travel, for vacation use. And it'll be for units that are certified as RVs within the Motor Vehicle Act. Maximum 15 camping spaces, no more than 1 fire pit, communal fire pit. Use is limited to May through September, and it'll be for 3 years. And with temporary use permits, someone can have a temporary use permit extended for another 3 years. And then the decommissioning would also be a requirement, and there's a $500 deposit required at the end of the use to ensure that the property is decommissioned. Here's a drawing showing the landscaping that will be provided. So along the Paradise Avenue, you can see there will be a plantings for screening, and then a fence, a split rail fence with concrete or brick posts. There'll be a chain link fence separating the property to the south, and then another good neighbor fence, they call it, separating the property on from the corner property on Paradise and Main Street. And then you can see the trees, the landscaping that are proposed to be provided. So as part of this process, we did send it out for referrals internally. And we had no concerns from the building inspector, the bylaw officer, engineering technologist said that the water source would need to be reviewed to determine an upgrade is required. The fire chief did respond, and he has no concerns. The development proposed. So this was also advertised in 2 issues of the newspaper and 2 issues of two local newspapers. And then we also sent out mailings to all the properties in the area. All the properties within 50 meters of the subject property. We did receive 3 responses back from people who were concerned, and their concerns were that the use wasn't appropriate, it could become unsightly. They're also concerned about noise. So the work we can build with the staff report, and those letters are also available in the agenda as part of the package. Staff in the staff report is recommending that the temporary use permit be issued. We see this as a positive on the corner of that property. Could promote the revitalization of the area. Motel is the primary use, and this just contributes to the property, and see an opportunity to bring people downtown and meets the conditions of the OCP and the town center area. I believe the applicant has a presentation. This is Mayor Anderson to make this presentation.
Yeah, go ahead. Thanks, Rob.
Thank you.
But
Pointing that way.
Hold on.
Good evening. First, I'd like to offer on behalf of Rikishi, Karen Mohan, Municipal Paradise, myself, congratulations to Mayor Anderson, to the incumbent councillors, and to the new councillors. We look very forward to working with you in the future.
thank you.
I thought it was important, Your Worship, to present a short presentation here, and I promise God I keep it short. I do tend to like to talk about these when I get passionate about these projects. It's important for everyone to understand where the temporary use permit is originated from. As Scott told you, the Paradise Hotel is on 517 Main Street, and the project site actually, C1 zoning, 2.94 acres. There are 3 entries right now. We intend on eliminating one of them and changing one of them. And it does border on Highway 97. It does border on Paradise. It does border on Main Street. It's a very unique development property. It's within the downtown core, the gateway area, as they call. The first thing we do with property of this size is, you gotta remember, this is private enterprise commercial development. So this is private money. This isn't tax money, this isn't grant money. This is somebody that's investing in the community. And the investment is driven, of course, by return on investment. And how do we debt service the investment to date? Investment's always phased. The first thing we look at on a property such as this are the sight lines and the build out. So this is called the bubble drawing. In development, we do that. We try to identify where a potential site can be. You can see that there's a large hotel site there. It's not necessarily, I call this the prime part of the property. But the bubble drawing really does, and it gives us the, how do we maximize the density of this for future development? Now, this is a long range growth. And what you do with development to maximize the efficiency of that development, as you take a look at the big picture and then you start peeling back the onion until you get to today and where we're at. I've never seen one of these long range developments come to land like they show. But what it does do for us is it identifies that there's a large area for a large building, a beautiful spot. I call it the 5-story hotel. That could end up being an apartment. It could end up being a strip mall with residents above it. We're not sure what that looks like because in the investment analysis and the risk reward, that's down the road. What it does do is it identifies 3 mixed-use buildings. So these 3 mixed-use buildings, we can start moving in, we can phase into. And it also identifies 2 target entrances. The corner property is owned by there's another landowner. And so we cannot utilize that into any of our planning. But the massing and flow gives us an indication of what the property could be like. When we start peeling back the onion, we start coming back in time, we realize the 3 mixed use buildings that we're going to pursue. The largest one is on Paradise, and that could be a 3-story, could be add up to about 12,000 square feet of gross floor area. It would replace the RVs that we're asking for today. It's a temporary use, and we've got to keep that in mind. And we peel back the onion or come back in time once more. The second largest is we're targeting for on Main Street, and we're looking at basically an H2O swim center, moving the existing swimming pool, doing something indoor, having a gym, and a mixed use and commercial element down below that could be e-bike rentals, or it could be outfitting, and it could complement that type of thing. That's the second largest building. And so that one would be in our year 4 financial strategy. Next year, we're looking at 3 elements to build a mixed use. The smallest of the 3 mixed use buildings, and we've actually initiated the development permit on that with the planning department here at the district of Sukhumi. And to utilize the temporary use permit RV sites for helping debt service the investment to date. There's a substantial amount of money that's been invested. The Mohan family hasn't owned this property for a calendar year yet. And they've already put in over $2 million has been invested in the community. The budget includes over twice that to get to where we want to be in year 6. Now, the temporary use permit, we also had one for the laundry. In front of you today, to get back to what we're dealing with, is a temporary use permit for RV sites and relocate and have a featured entry off of Paradise. There's one thing I want to point out right now is that to invest money into an entrance and landscaping, it needs to fall into the large plan. The reason that we do the 10-year plan and peel back is so that every time we invest into this piece of property, its end goal is heading towards the final goal. The landscape features and the entry off Paradise, as you can see, and we've included some fairly extensive landscaping there. We can afford to do that because that landscape and entry is a part of the 10-year plan. So it remains in the RV sites that we're looking for temporary use are replaced by a mixed use building. So today, I'm going to, like I say, temporary use RV sites. The key word here is temporary. It's 3-year. It's within our 5 to 6 year plan that we would be putting a mixed use building on Paradise. It's important, it's critical that there's a cash flow to help debt service the investments to date, and this will help that. There's water and power hookups we have no problems with, absolutely no to wastewater. We're not bringing in that type of infrastructure for something that's going to be replaced in 4, 5, 6 years. The feature entry on Paradise is really one of our keys, and that's going to end up being a feature to the property forever. And the landscape buffer and screening, of course, we can move forward with that as well. The other thing that is interesting when working with this is that we've got an existing motel. So we start coming in and we were questioned on, what are the regulations, the rules and regulations for the RVs. It'd be short-term stay, nightly fees, no long-term whatsoever. It'd be operated very similar to a motel suite. And actually under the same rules, same check-in rules, same check-out rules, same booking rules, same noise rules as well as the existing motel. And that is Cole's note of why we want to, we're asking for your support for a temporary use permit.
Thank you, Rob. Appreciate that. Kate, I am going to invite questions from the public at this point. Does anyone have any questions? Go ahead, Deb.
Questions or comments?
Questions or comments, and could you just state your name? You don't need to state your address, but just state your name.
Absolutely. Deb Heath. And so, just a few comments. One, like obviously you guys know I do communities in bloom, but I'm also a business owner in town where I've had to deal with the issue of and being on the planning and development committee, what I call transitional zoning. I think as a small business person, sometimes that's the only way you can make these things work, because you need to be able to fund what you're doing while you're planning for your long-term goal. And I know it's worked for me. I think that the proponent has shown a lot of initiative in terms of already doing things with the property. On the communities in bloom front, they had a really crappy, like back around the house, they had a bunch of garbage out there that, like you try and make sure the judges weren't looking that way, so the screening they're planning for and some of the work they've done, I think is fabulous. I think that this will be a good revitalization for downtown. And I think sometimes you have to do temporary use permits to get from point A to point B, and ultimate zoning is. So I would just like to go on the record as supporting it.
Thanks, Deb. Go ahead, Mary.
Mary, I think we should lay out the red carpet for this. We've had an issue for RVs for camping for years. I mean, I just think this is awesome that somebody is willing to come into our community and propose something as wonderful as this.
Thanks, Mary. Anyone else? Council? Does anyone have any comments? Go ahead, Gordon.
Through the chair, yeah, I would, well, first off, like to thank Rakesh and his wife Karen for investing in our community. We all know development, this property has had 2 temporary use permits already for RVs. And whether they were successful or not, I don't know. But looking at the plans, I've already been over, and some of us have been over and had a look at the proposed development and the property. And to take a look at what they've done in the short time they've been there, and they've renovated the house, and it's now a long-term rental home for some family here in town to be able to rent long-term. They've renovated like 15 rooms already, and they've really cleaned up the property. And a temporary use permit, sometimes you have to crawl before you can walk. And this is the way they proposed it and the screening, the cedar fencing and leaving the big willows there, the big weeping willows with cedars out front on Main Street or inwards a bit. It will really, you won't even know it's there. And they're running a motel and they're going to make sure that the campers are not making noise to the people in the hotel and vice versa. So, I think it's a great opportunity for Sicamous to have more rentals, like short-term rentals too in town, not short-term rentals, but I mean, weekly rentals. It'll also add to our MRDT tax, which is, that's really starting to come into play now. So I think it's a great project myself.
Thanks, Councilor Joe. Anyone else?
Madam Mayor, Ian.
Go ahead, Councilor Bailey.
Thanks. I just have a couple of questions. So just going through your plan and just even the plan that you just kind of outlined, how long do you envision the campsite to be there? It kind of looks like you're thinking around 6 years. Am I correct on that?
The temporary use permit works well for us because within that 6-year period, 3 to 6 year period, we would like to develop that into a mixed use building. So we see that that 3 year and taking a hard look at our investment and what the return has been on it, and taking a look at the market itself and just seeing if we can move forward and if there's absorption within the community for adding a mixed use building. The apartment side, we know there is. The commercial side is what we want to monitor. So 3 to 6 year.
Yeah, I guess what I'm trying to get at is just a realistic timeline for you. And so that this is kind of also on the record that, the TUP, we're allowed to issue a 3 year. We're allowed then to extend it another 3 years. So it's a potential 6 year kind of period. And I just want to be clear on kind of what you're asking for within your 10-year plan. So, I mean, this council is only around for 4 years, but if we have that discussion of saying, well, this is part of a 6-year plan, then I guess that gives us some clarity into what the future plans are for you.
Yeah, exactly. That's why we have to face it. And like I mentioned, you take a look at that 10-year plus, I've yet to see one of those fall into place as projected. But what they do is they identify the smaller steps that you can take. Temporary use permit is the step that takes us towards, first of all, gaining more income to debt service investment to date. But also that we can, step into building 1 or 2, potentially 3 of those mixed use buildings. The investment timeline is also gauged on putting money to work. And that money's going to go to work in some community. And right now, Keisha and wife has decided that Sicamous is the community where that money's going to be invested. So it's not about determining where we're going to get the money to put in. It's about determining where are we going to invest this money. So this is the first small step. And it's a good question because timelines, first thing we know about schedules is you throw them away, you rewrite it next week sort of thing. But this gives us at least a benchmark that we can work with. It also gives control back to the council in 3 years. If we haven't maintained what we said we were going to, or if we're not heading in the right direction, of course, the council has the right to reverse the authorizing the use of RVs there. So that's why we like this instrument in particular.
If I may, Madam Chair.
Yep.
Just I guess a question on the landscaping. I see you have the individual barriers, and I guess I couldn't see quite clearly enough on the map. But are you planning on doing, I guess, privacy fencing on the outside along Paradise and along Main Street, so it kind of, hides the element of the campground a little bit more? Was that part of the plan?
Yeah, and Mr. Bailey, the landscape plan in front that we worked with your planning department on And there's a couple different types of fencing that we've introduced here. Safety fencing, chain link, black chain link fencing with a Virginia creeper on it between the ambulance station and the RVs. And that's simply to keep people out of the ambulance area. Between the old Secret Garden and so Main Street, I guess, and on our property, we're looking at cedar panels, something that can be repurposed elsewhere in the future. But basically a good neighbor fence. So yeah, 5-6 foot cedar panel that has some decoration on the top of it. But on Paradise, we don't want to mask what's going on in there. We're looking at a low profile executive type, estate type rail and stone with a landscape buffer. And whether that's a zero-scape buffer with plantings or marine theme, we're working right now on that type of idea. But the buffer there is basically the offset for the building, future building. So that buffer will be landscaped, and then we're looking at putting a fairly strong barrier of cedar trees so that the vision of the RVs is blocked at Paradise as well. So the thought process was to hide everything, but not to make it look like a big old wooden fence on Paradise Ave, but to make it as an inviting entrance.
Right, okay.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks, Councillor Bailey. I'm just gonna refer to Sarah to see if there's anyone on the line that would like to make a comment, then we go to you, Kelly.
Do you want me to do it? Yeah. So it's storage, you're having a hard time accessing it. But we do have somebody online with a comment. The mic isn't working on backs. So I'll just read what she's saying here. Sorry, can't get my mic to work. Once a TUB is issued, can it be renewed beyond the 3-year period and the one extension? Are we looking at any more time than the 6 years?
Scott, do you want to take that?
I can, thank you. So TUP, it's good for 3 years, a maximum of 3 years, and be extended for a maximum of 3 years. The extension would come back to council, similar to this process, it would be advertised. The temporary use permit cannot be extended beyond that 6 years. However, they could apply to rezone at that time. They could change their plans and apply for another temporary use permit.
Okay, and the secondary question is what actions can be taken by the DOS if the noise, smoke, or potentially other issues become a problem?
So the one option is the typical bylaw enforcement route, where the bylaw enforcement goes over and addresses those. Another option is through the business license process where it's not working, and we address it through the business license process.
Awesome. Thank you, Scott. Is that it for over there, Kelly?
Anybody else online? Raise your hand.
Anyone else from the gallery, council? Okay, I'm going to call a second time for input from the public. Anyone? I'm going to call a third time. Comments? Is the public, sorry.
Sorry, is there somebody back there? Do you want to say
Sorry.
something?
What's the topic?
Oh.
I'm here to talk about rats.
Oh. Okay, thank you. The public hearing is now closed at 5:28. Authorization insurance of temporary use permit application number 22.-202-TUP. The recommendation that the District of Sycamoose authorize and issue temporary use permit number 22-202-TUP for Lot B, District Lot 497, Kamloops Division, Yale District, Plan 19663, 517 Main Street for a campground with recreational vehicles for a period of 3 years, subject to the conditions of the permit. Do I have a mover? Counselor Bushel, second. Counselor Evans. Anyone opposed? Thank you. Motion is carried. Thanks, Rod. Sorry,
I was waiting for some discussion.
we had I asked for discussion prior to calling the question.
Oh, I missed that. We discussed it at the hearing, but
We put them both together. Are you okay?
yeah.
Okay. All right, let's move on. We have a delegation here today from Monashee Music Festival, Andy Bowie. Is Andy here? Is Andy online?
He is.
I see him online.
Okay,
Hello.
Andy, you have the floor.
Hello, Madam Mayor, council members and citizens of Sycamoose. I just wanted to run down the 2022 Monashee Music Festival and go over a few things we want to do and propose for 2023. Answer any questions head on and just get the ball rolling if we could. So 2022, we had Monashee Friday, July 22nd, rock and alternative with approximately 1,600 guests with 5440 as a headliner. And Saturday, July 23rd was country night, approximately 1,400 guests with Tyler Joe Miller as a headliner. We invested a substantial amount of money in the festival in 2022 with no likely returns for the first 3 to 4 years. Local Sycamoose motels, campgrounds, restaurants, pubs, gas stations, liquor stores, ice supply, electricians, contractors, and many small businesses benefited from the Monashee Music Festival. We had 16 all-Canadian bands and 2 DJs. We raised approximately $10,000 for Mamas for Mamas, a nonprofit organization that helps single struggling parents ensure their children's basic needs are met across Canada. And that includes a shoe swap division. We donated over 500 tickets to first responders, nurses, and care aides. Overall, excellent feedback from guests, local businesses, past mayor of Sycamoose and RCMP. We're currently searching for possible investors and have applied for grants for 2023. There are questions for council. And I know a lot of this is through paperwork and we're happy to go ahead with that. First off, we want to know if there's any questions that we can head on from 2022, or if you have any for the upcoming festival. Wondering who's on board from the, because I know it's a big team thing. We want to ensure council and the mayor are on board with it. So we don't want to fight anything that's not wanted. So we're wondering who's in favor of having the return of the Monashee at the Sycamoose Dog Park for Friday, July 21st and Saturday, July 22nd, 2023. And also an update on ALC event permit, which I know was getting renewed or is in the process for the dog park. That was one of our biggest challenges. Trying to promote an event without having any camping close by was a nightmare for us and definitely detrimental to our finances and for the numbers attending the event. We also questioning the removal of the no satellite camping clause for the ALC that you have in place. And any questions or concerns that we can answer at this time. So thank you.
Andy, council, any questions? Go ahead, Councillor Evans.
Thank you through the chair. Andy, where did a good portion of the people end up camping?
Many of them, we had the temporary last minute camping at Shane Yarmaloy's area. We had a lot of people that filled the motels and campgrounds in the district of Sycamoose. And we had a lot of people that came and they didn't necessarily drink because they had to return to either Kamloops or Kelowna or some of the small towns in between.
And that's what hurt you. That's what you're saying. They couldn't stay within the vicinity of the festival, so it hurt you financially?
That was one of the main concerns for financial reasons, but there's definitely a lot we learned the first year and a lot we can do better for 2023.
Thanks.
Go ahead, Councillor Beach.
Chair, so Did we have camping there prior times when the Stomp was? We've had festivals there before. Have we never had camping alongside of those? I thought we did.
I think at some of those functions we did, I think Son of Stomp, there was camping there, if I'm not mistaken. I'm going to defer to maybe Daryl, you can answer.
Through Mayor Anderson. Sure. The Stomp was primarily tents. So they showed up on bikes and had tents and they set up around the perimeter. And this was, I guess the concern was the RVs and everything else was a little different of an impact. So that kind of camping was.
All right,
Anyone else?
Mayor,
Go ahead. Sorry about that, Ian. I keep missing you.
No,
Go
no.
ahead, Counselor Bailey.
I guess just a question. I mean, you kind of outlined in your presentation there some of the issues that you had to tackle. I mean, I'm a big supporter. I thought it was great. I mean, I certainly saw a lot of people coming into town for it and a lot of rave reviews, I think, from people. And I can certainly understand the challenge of, accommodation. I saw that where I think people wanted to stay in town. There just wasn't an option to stay in town. So could you maybe just highlight a couple of things maybe we can help you with? This is November, December. Between now and, July, what's some of the barriers that you could use a hand on?
I think the main one was the agricultural land commission deal that you had in place. I know it was just getting extended in either this month or last, and that we have to look into whether there's a satellite camping allowed or not. That was a huge hit for also safety. Sergeant McNeil, that was his biggest concern, was people crossing the highway, and same as ours. We didn't want anyone to get struck. I know the lighting's quite dim and it's a busy highway, obviously. Last thing we would want would be anyone's safety in jeopardy. So something with some of the neighbors have offered their land, and it's in the agricultural land reserve. So that's been a massive issue for us, having camping around there. And wondering if you're able to work with the agricultural land reserve, because it's out of our hands, basically. It's to do with the district of Sicamous and the ALR.
Thanks. Counselor Bailey, do you have any more questions? Or
No, I mean, really the main barrier is accommodation.
Correct.
Thank you. Scott, did you want to make a comment?
Yeah, I can speak to that. Thank you. So there was a non-farm use application made to the Agricultural Land Commission that was good for 5 years, I believe, and that expired in September of this year. One of the conditions of that non-farm use was that there is no other agricultural land reserve properties were allowed to be used for camping. So the condition of that, of the dog park being used for community events is that no other properties in the ALR are used for camping. So council did put forward an application for a new non-farm use permit. We have a meeting scheduled this week, actually, with the Land Commission to talk about the permit and the conditions of the permit. So that is something that we're going to ask for, is that condition be removed. So what would have to happen is if somebody lives in that area, wants to host camping, they would have to make their own application to the land reserve for a non-farm use, unless they already had permission through the Land Commission for camping. So we'll work on it from our end as part of our permit for the non-farm use for that property to host the event. But then it would still be up to the agriculture land reserve properties to go after that themselves to allow the camping on their property.
Thanks, Scott. Andy, thank you so much for your presentation. Oh, sorry, I got one more. Go ahead, Malcolm.
Well, I think he was actually looking for council support, so.
I
You were going there?
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Andy. I think general consensus with council as well as community was the The festival was successful and well attended. And so what we'd like to do is request that you can put together your proposal and submit it to the DOS, and we will have a look at the whole package. But just moving forward, you have our support to move forward, putting together your presentation and submitting it to the DOS.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Annie.
We're not taking questions from that, are we? No, I'm sorry. We'll catch up to that questions in a bit. Okay, thank you. Okay, so where we are here, where are we here? So bylaws and policies. So Daryl did a great presentation today at Committee of the Whole. And so the snow and ice control policy, PW-25 amendment. Daryl, do you want a proposal? And then we will have a
Sure.
discussion. Thank you.
Through the chair. Yeah, just a small change being thrown out there for council to consider. Our current snow policy is pretty comprehensive. We'd be looking at making one, I guess you could call it a little housekeeping change, as we're practically taking the windrows down to a level that we're proposing that we make formal. So right now, the tolerance is 0.5 meters at the base of a driveway. We're coming in, if it's anywhere near there, we'd like to identify it in the policy and state that at 0.35, we will be clearing the bottom of the driveway. There'll be no financial impact. It might take a little bit longer, in certain circumstances, but no real impact on day to day.
Okay, thank you, Daryl. Does anyone have any questions? Council have questions? Okay, recommendation of the district to Sycamore snow and ice control policy PW-25 be amended as presented this 30th day of November 2022. Can I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Beach. Seconder? Thanks, Councillor. Okay. All in favor? Sorry. Thank you. Thanks, Daryl. Okay, we're moving on to staff reports. Development permit number 22-306-DP 1226 Riverside Avenue. Scott, do you want to comment on that? And then we'll get into.
Thank you, Mayor. So I have a PowerPoint. I'm just trying to get it up on the screen. So this is an application for a development permit. It's for 1226 Riverside Avenue. And that's the red barn, the property the red barn's on. It's a development permit to allow for an accessory building, which is a CCAN. And staff's recommending that be issued. And also there's a recommendation that the district Sycamore waive the development permit fees. It's a nonprofit. It would be fair to waive the development permit fees. Here's the property. It's located 1226 Riverside Avenue. I think everybody pretty much knows where the red barn is. And then on each side, there's the two businesses on either side. Property is in the town center, Fisher Community Plan area, and it's zone C4, which is waterfront commercial. Here you can see the drawing of the red barn and then where the CCAN is proposed to go. There's a requirement not to block the door that provides access to the building. And then it's actually painted red at this time, matches the red of the red barn. And they're also proposing to affix some art panels to the structure as well. Those examples, those were included in the application package. Yeah, there are no rules around distance from the propane tank that we enforce. So just the condition that the proximity of propane tank will be in accordance with senior government regulations. And then also something that says no parking Nobody's blocking any of the access or egress in the parking lot. Here's a picture of the property. I remember when I went over there and I kind of had to do a double take just to find the CCAN. And then once they cover it with the artwork that you can see on the side of the red barn, it should fit in pretty well. Should send this out for comments. No concerns. Building permit will be required as soon as it comes off the vehicle and is used as a building. The building inspector would want to have a look at it. And then the fire chief did point out those concerns with access and the propane tank. So that's why we added those conditions to the permit. Again, it's gonna fit in with the building, the artwork, and then it fits in with the requirements of the development permit area. And again, staff feel that it would be appropriate to waive the development permit fees as well.
Thank you, Scott. Before I read the recommendation, does council have any comments that they'd like to make prior to this? Go ahead, Councillor Evans.
Thank you through the chair. I would like to make a pseudo amendment that we will take cookies freshly baked in lieu of a development permit fee.
Okay, all right. Could someone take note? Go ahead, Councillor Bushel.
Yeah, through the chair. Yeah, you always need storage, and I know the Red Barn and the society needs some room in there. It's just a thought. It's a pretty steep roof, and depending on how close it is to the roof, to that building, if the snow comes off there, if it does fall between the building and the CCAN, it'll put a lot of pressure on that building, and it's probably not the strongest building as it is, and you wouldn't want to pop that window out. It would probably push that window in if you don't remove the snow all the time. So it's just an ongoing maintenance issue they might have. So it's just a comment.
Thank you. Councillor Beach.
Oh, no, I was disagreeing with. Sorry. I mean, I think, yes, maybe you're thinking an extension over the CCAN?
I mean,
A roof extension?
it would help the snow come off.
Yeah,
Sure.
it would protect it.
But if it
instead of it-
lands on top of the CCAN, it just builds up towards the.
Yeah, absolutely. Good point.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, I'm going to read the recommendation that the District of Sycamoose authorize and issue development permit number 22-306-DP for the property legally described at Lot 11, District Lot 452, Kamloops Division, Yale District Plan 2026, located at 1226 Riverside Ave, to permit the placement of an accessory building. Could I get a mover? Thank you. Councillor Evans. Councillor Beach. All in favor? Carried. The second part of this resolution, recommendation that the District of Sycamoose waive the development permit application fee required per district and Sycamoose fees and charges by law number 740-2009. Can I get a mover? Councillor Bushel, Councillor Rich, all in favor? Opposed? I can't see Ian.
Yeah, I'm in favor.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Carried. Okay, moving on, we're going to go to the 2022 general local election results, and Ms. Sarah's going to take it away.
Thank you through the chair. This is a housekeeping item. So under section 158 of the Local Government Act, the chief election officer must present to the local government the election results within 30 days of official declaration of the results. So this is already presented to council and we've included it on the agenda so it can form part of the public record. We had 12 councillor candidates and 5 candidates for mayor. However, we had 1 candidate for councillor withdraw before the deadline, so 11. And as you can see in the report, we have just a comparison of results from the 2018 election to 2022 for the number of voters. This year was the first year that we provided mail ballot voting as an option, which was interesting for staff. The total of mail ballots that were casted were 14. Overall, we had 964 ballots cast, which was an increase from 2018. However, our eligible voters increased, so the turnout actually decreased slightly from 46.6% to 43.7%. However, overall, provincially, there was a slight decrease in local government turnout, voter turnout. So there's some information here just for you guys to review. And it's an information report, but there is a resolution attached that you just accept it. And that's all.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Corporate Officer Kylo. Thank you. Okay, the recommendation of staff report titled to 2022 general local election results be received by council this 30th day of November 2022. Can I get a mover? Do I need to move this? Yes, I do.
Yeah,
Councillor Bushel, Councillor Evans, all in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Can't oppose ourselves.
Exactly, yeah. Good point. This isn't where you throw it down. Okay, so we've got some notices of motion now and resolutions. We did some of these previously, but now we're going to make a couple changes because scheduling and people's schedules have changed. So we're going to back a couple out and put a couple in. So let's start with acting mayor appointment. The recommendation that council rescind resolution 22-356 from the November 9th, 2022 inaugural council meeting that Council McCabe be appointed as acting mayor for the remainder of 2022 and 2023 year. Could I get him? You should be on your chair. Councillor McCabe, seconded by Councillor Rich. All in favor? Carried. Recommendation that Councillor Bushel be appointed as acting mayor for the remainder of 2022 and the 2023 year. Could I get a motion? Thank you, Councillor Beach, seconded by Councillor Evans. All in favor? Carried. Was Ian in favor?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Columbia Shuswap Regional Board appointment. Recommendation that council rescind resolution 22-358 from the November 9th, 2022 inaugural council meeting that Mayor Colleen Anderson be appointed as director to the Columbia Shuswap Regional District Board and that Councillor McCabe be appointed as alternate director. Can I get a mover? Thank you, Councillor McCabe, second. Councillor Rich, all in favor? Carried. The new recommendation that Mayor Colleen Anderson be appointed as director to the Columbia Shuswap Regional District Board and that Councillor Bushel be appointed as alternate director. Could I get a mover? Councillor Beach, Councillor McCabe, all in favor? Carried. Thanks. Okay, moving right along. Recommendation that Councillor Bushel be appointed to the Shuswap North Okanagan Rail Trail Advisory Committee and that Councillor Bailey be appointed as the alternate representative. Could I get a mover? Did I forget one?
Let's do the rescind.
No, did I miss the rescind?
Miss the rescind.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Sorry, we'll just back up one. Recommendation that council rescind resolution 22-359 from November 9th, 2022 inaugural council meeting that Councillor Bushel be appointed to the Shuswap North Okanagan Rail Trail Advisory Committee and that Councillor McCabe be appointed it as an alternate. Can I get Councillor Evans, seconded by Councillor Beach, all in favor? Carried. Recommendation that Councillor Bushel be appointed to the Shuswap North Okanagan Rail Trail Advisory Committee and Councillor Bailey be appointed as the alternate representative. Mover, Councillor Bushel, Councillor Beach, all in favor? Thank you. Okanagan Regional Library Board appointment. Recommended that Councillor Evans be appointed as the District of Sycamoose representative for the Okanagan Regional Library Board, and Councillor Rich be appointed as an alternate. Can I get a mover? Second.
I have had no discussion between any of these.
Have any of you noticed? No one's stopping me though, so
I think I'm good to go, right?
any discussion?
Go ahead.
Just in the previous ones, I just want a little background, back that it was just a little bit, I was just getting a little bit too much loaded up in the committees and there's no dissension among the ranks. We're all good. And I'm still in the housing committee. I'm still on the council to council for Splatson committee. As portfolios, I still look after health, which is the healing center or, help. Kelly looks after it. And so I was just trying to, and with Eagle Valley Transportation, I'm taking on a fairly big load there, basically that society rides and driving. So I was just trying to balance my life out a bit more. And no disrespect to any council members or anything like that. I'm all good.
Thanks, Councillor McKay. I did kind of do an overview when we started, but thanks for clarifying that for us.
There was another in second. So there's no discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Shuswap Watershed Council appointment. It's recommended that Councillor Beach be appointed to the District of Sycamoose as representative for the Shuswap Watershed Council. I need a mover. Councillor Bushel, Councillor Evans, any discussion? I am just going to add, this was on my plate prior to this. I think Pam's going to do a great job, but my plate is running over as well. So I have to step off a couple of things, but thank you, Pam, for taking this on. All in favor? Carried. Tourism Advisory Council, District of Sycamoose Development Corporation appointment. It's recommended that Councillor Bailey be appointed to the district as the district representative on the Tourism Advisory Council for the District of Sycamoose Development Corporation. Could I get a mover? Councillor Beach, Councillor McCabe, any discussion? Call the question, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Appointment to the Shuswap Community Foundation Education Committee for Grant and Aid. It's recommended that Councillor Rich be appointed the district representative on the Shuswap Community Foundation Adjudication Committee for the District Community Services Grant in Aid.
Oops.
Bianca, and I know that she will look after the finances and the dollars for the District of Sycamoose just as diligently as I have been. So I'm delighted to have her doing that.
Awesome. Thanks, Kelly. Okay, appointment of signing officers, a recommendation that Mayor Colleen Anderson, Acting Mayor Gord Bushel, Chief Administration Officer Kelly Bennett, and Chief Financial Officer Bianca Colonna be appointed as signing officers for the District of Sycamoose with the Salmon Arm Savings and Credit Union, effective this 30th day of November 2022. Councillor Evans, seconded by Councillor Rich. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, that's carried. Wow, that was a lot. Congratulations, everyone, on your new appointments. Let's go out there and win the war. Resolutions released from in camera. This is for information only. We do have a resolution that has been released from in camera, and it's resolution number IC 22-342. That council unanimously supports waterfront access, including docks, within its jurisdiction. And further that the resolution be released from in camera. Thank you. Okay, we have some correspondence. We have the demolition of 1133 Paradise Avenue. We have the letter. Is John online to speak to this?
Let's see here.
I don't believe so.
Okay, so
I can speak to it.
if you would like to speak to it, Kelly, that's great.
Yep, so let's see here, back in. So we passed a certified resolution in September of 2022 to waive some unsightly premise fines that were imposed on 1133 Paradise Avenue. There was some fines of, I believe, $23,000, and we waived those if the building was demolished by December 31st, 2022. So as I'm sure people have noticed driving by, there's fences along there now, and they've started on the demolition. They're having, they're working towards the completion. However, Hydro is holding them up. It's with their design team at Hydro because they're reallocating one of the hydro poles there. So they've asked for an extension until April 30th. That the building will be able to go down probably sooner than later. They're waiting on Hydro, but then they have to wait for the concrete earthworks until it warms up a little bit to get that removed. So they're asking for an extension till April 30th.
Okay, thank you.
And we do have a draft resolution ready to go, depending on what direction council wants to go on this.
So council, do you have any comments before we go into resolution? Go ahead, Councillor McKay.
Thank you. Yeah, I just like power is still hooked up there. Hydro is still hooked up to the building. Usually when you do demolition, you have that disconnected first. So there was a tenant in that building. I'm just curious of the status of that tenant. Is this possibly, like we to put a red herring to allow the tenant to stay longer kind of thing? I mean, I can't see if we're going to move forward with giving an extension to 31st, I think that would be for a substantial completion, but we should modify it to say that the building still has to meet the timelines that we've already established, which we're flexible. It was going to be a shorter period, but we said, no, let's add a couple months to that to make sure that they have enough time. So the concrete foundation, you have the grounds frozen, it costs more when it's frozen. So maybe allow that in the spring, but I mean, the lot should be clear by December 31st in my mind. They can dispose of material. I don't think there's an issue there. I'm curious why the hydro hasn't been disconnected before the demolition.
To answer that, I believe they've made their request, but because it's not just being dropped, they want to move the pole that it's in with BC Hydro being reviewed right now. So that's why they've only demolished part of the building and they're waiting before they demolish the rest.
Just, if I may.
Yes, go ahead.
The optics to the public looks like they know there's a tenant in there and the power is still hooked up and now we're giving an extension. I'd like to see the building down. I don't know why they can't do two steps with mobilize twice, one for disconnect and one for relocate.
Okay, thank you. Scott, you have before we go on, Scott, you have a comment on this?
Thank you. So they do have a demolition permit that's been issued. I believe the tenant is gone. The power, they brought in a little building and they actually moved the power to that little building. But then there's a bigger hydro issue that, yeah, I'm not terribly familiar with the process, but there is a bigger hydro issue they need to address. But they have, I believe, swung the power to that little building that's there. The condition of the demolition permit is that it's remediated, it's completely finished. So I think it's those things, they're not gonna be done in time, and I think I don't know if it was the resolution or the common vision is that it would be to the point that they could get final inspection for the demolition permit, and they won't be able to do that by December 31st, just with the timing of things.
Councillor Beach.
So there's a chance that it'll sit the way it is now until April.
I would say there's a chance it could sit like that, although I understand they are going to move forward on it.
Okay, but it's a mess. And I don't think we want it to sit like that until April.
Go ahead, Councillor McCabe.
Yeah, I think in contract terms, we could ask for substantial completion, the ground's cleaning and the final inspection could be maybe April. But I think we should stick to December 31st for substantial completion and put some definition around that, what that is. Like the building's tore down, concrete can be removed in the spring kind of thing.
Councillor Bushel.
Through the chair, I know and Daryl could probably speak on this, dealing with BC Hydro, when you're in a commercial piece of property, takes some time, and it could take 6 months dealing with BC Hydro. It is a long process to get even a power pole put in or a wire transfer. I know his intent is to, as soon as a hydro comes in and removes that mass, they're going to remove the building, is what we've been told. And I know Kelly and I went over to visit Shane and John and yeah, that's their intent, to actually have the building completely down, but it's the brickwork, the groundwork in the springtime to be able to at least adhere to the demolition permit.
So we got.
Go ahead, Councillor Bailey.
Thanks. Yeah, I have a little bit of experience with this. We had to go through a hydro redesign when we were building the Narrows, and that took us 6 months. And that was a building that was already already connected, but they had to run just another line from a pole right outside of the building into our building, and that took 6 months because just how they operate. So based on my experience, I can certainly see how BC Hydro would be holding this up.
Okay, thanks. And go ahead, Malcolm.
I still go back to substantial completion. If Gord's talked to them and Kelly and their intent is to have the building down by the end of December, then why not issue an amendment to the permit to say we'd like to see substantial completion by December 31st, and then the foundation can be dealt with by their extension date.
Councillor Beach.
I was just going to ask if we could, if it has to stay like that, could we ask them to screen out the fence or do something to cover it up? Because if for a long length of time, if it's going to sit like that, I don't know.
Councillor Evans, did you have a comment?
So before me.
See, okay, that's
Yeah.
polite of you, Councillor Bushel.
And I understand where you're coming from, Malcolm, but he might not be able to tear it down by the end of the month because Hydro won't have moved that power line off the mast. So that's why.
Didn't Scott say it's been moved to a small building?
I know there's a power line still hooked up to the mast. I saw it today. So.
That possibly cable or internet or something?
No, it's an actual hydro line. So I don't know, but it might take them 2 months to get that down or 3 months I don't know how long it takes when it goes through the engineering department. But he might not be able to live up to our expectations because you can't push hydro. Daryl knows that. But their intent is to have the building. John told us again the other day, his intent is to have the building completely gone and they'll do the cleanup and the leveling and all that in the springtime.
Dawn, who has the resolution on this? Sarah, do you have the resolution? You want to read it out loud?
So if council allowed for the extension, we would just change the original resolution to state April 30th, 2023 versus December 31st. You could change the date, so you could allow an extension for a different period of time. Or the other option I had was that you don't grant the extension and that no resolution would be required and the previous resolution stands. But we could change the wording as Councillor McCabe had suggested to December 31st with substantial completion, the wording of substantial completion included.
Okay, let's get a first and a second
On this, and then have some discussion to change reword the recommendation.
For which one? I'm sorry.
I would think the first
One of changing the dates. Is that council's wish?
Well, there's nothing on the floor yet, so we can start with anything.
Oh, do you want to move it?
Good comment.
Okay, go ahead. Well, hold off on the
I
recommendation.
myself would be in favor of allowing them to the end of April. Because a lot of this stuff is out of his control. And he's already made enough progress, so I would be in favor of.
So are you moving that recommendation to the extension of April 30th?
Are we still doing discussion and then?
I have something for discussion.
Okay, let's just leave it open for discussion right now, and then we'll decide which resolution we're gonna go with. Okay, Councillor Rich.
When was the December 31st date first proposed, or when did we agree to December 31st? Sorry, I can't see that far.
September 28th.
So they've had 2 months. Okay.
Okay, Councillor Bushel.
Yeah, I don't know if you'll be able to get it down by the end of the month. With hydro. It took me 6 months to get power.
Madam Mayor,
Yep, go ahead.
I personally think April is fine. You really cannot push hydro. They do not care. And I think if he's, if he started this process in September, somewhere around there, 6 months for hydro is not unrealistic. So I think he's gonna take it down. He just needs some more time. And it's not so simple to, I think, take most of the building down and leave part of it up either, especially when it's hooked up to hydro. There's a safety concern there as well.
For sure.
Go ahead, Councillor McCabe.
Make a motion. We just change the date to the 31st of April. Keep resolution with the new date.
Council, agree?
Yeah.
Could I make an amendment to that, though? If he does manage to get BC Hydro unhooked sooner than the 31st of April, perhaps we can look, we can look at finishing the demo, or he can look at finishing the demolition at that time.
Sorry, through the chair, 30 days in April.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
Okay.
I think I was thinking of
December 31st.
It reads that way and it says no later than, so an earlier date's already accepted.
So, Sarah, do you want to read that?
So sorry, I'm not sure what the part that you're asking for amending. I'll just read it out as is and then we can look at, okay, so that District of Sicamous Council not enforce the $23,000 in fines issued under the Good Neighbor Bylaw number 1005 for failure to maintain building components related to 1133 Paradise Avenue until the earlier of April 30th, 2023, or the final inspection report for the demolition of the building is received by council.
I mean, we could always, we could always add or 30 days after the disconnection of BC Hydro Services. If you wanted to.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, it is.
We need a date after he gets disconnected, because once he gets disconnected, he still has until the 30th of April to finish it off, right? So let's
put a little push on it to get it as soon as it's disconnected.
So do you want to put a provision in there like 30 days after BC Hydro disconnect?
Yep, Sarah's working on it right now.
So the options would be April 30th, 2023, or 30 days after the disconnection from hydro?
Yeah.
Or the final inspection report? Is that how, sorry?
The only thing on that is, so if let's say they disconnect hydro in 2 weeks. And then it's 30 days past, but the earthwork still isn't done.
Right.
Because that still won't be done until the spring. Do we want to bother complicating that?
No.
That's my only concern on that. But I hear what you're saying in terms of wanting that down as fast as possible.
Go ahead, Councillor Evans.
And I think they know we want it down as fast as possible, so I think we should leave it as is.
So it's April the 30th. Let's go back to the original.
That District of Sycamoose Council not enforce the $23,000 fines issued under the Good Neighbor Bylaw number 1005 for failure to maintain building components related to 1133 Paradise Avenue until the earlier of April 30th, 2023, or the final inspection report for the demolition of the building is received by council.
Mover. Councillor McCabe, seconded. Councillor Evans, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. That was a tough one for our first day on the job, eh? Okay, so moving along, the donation for community Christmas dinner, a recommendation that the District of Sycamoose donate amount. I'm going to say it historically, we've donated $500, so I'm gonna put $500 in there and we can have a discussion about it. To the Sycamoose and District Senior Center Society support the community Christmas dinner on December 21st, 2022. Can I get a mover? Councillor Evans, Councillor Beach, some discussion? We'll be taking questions at the end. Thank you. Discussion? I have a comment. $500 this year doesn't get you as far as $500 last year for groceries. So my question is, how does council feel about upping that to cost of living? So maybe adding a couple $100 onto that request to make up for inflation. Go ahead.
Yeah, I agree. I was gonna suggest that, but I didn't want to complicate the process, but yeah, I would say 700 is more than reasonable. They think they're gonna feed about 100 people.
Awesome. Okay. Do I have to amend that resolution?
So you'll have to vote on it, defeat it, and then.
And that's why we want to have these conversations prior to reading the recommendation.
And then now.
I get it now. All right.
Or you can just make an amendment to change the amount from 500 to 700.
Yeah.
That seems simple, and we'll
Yeah.
vote on that.
Okay,
We,
you can vote on the amendment. This is a good practice. So
Okay.
your amendment is to change the donation from $500 to $700.
can I get a mover on the amendment? Thank you, Councillor Beach, Councillor McCabe, all in favor on the amendment. Now we're going to go back to the original recommendation that we donate money. Could I get a mover?
You have a mover and a seconder. So you
Oh,
just vote
all
on
in
it.
favor? Carried.
Thanks.
Excellent.
A little bit of maneuvering, hey? Okay, so thank you very much for that. We have some correspondence. Sorry.
But
Coming.
I was really worried that that was gonna happen to me. Correspondence for information. So does anyone have any comments on the correspondence that we have for us? Go ahead, Councillor McCabe.
The letter from John Horgan, Premier. That's nice that we got that. That's a result from council, previous council working at UBCM. And it opens the door to, we can use this letter to tell the Minister of Health that he has to assist us in talking to Interior Health Authority and move forward with our Shuswap Healing Center. So that's a nice tool to have in our tool chest.
It definitely is. Thank you. Anyone else?
For that same item.
that came up this morning at the site visit with the RC, the Rural Care Coordination. PC Center, the doctors said the very same thing. They said that was a very, very smart move on our part. To talk to the Premier Horgan.
Excellent, that's good to hear. I'm going to comment on that too, because healthcare in our community is so important, and we've got a good team fighting for our healthcare and our building and support services. So that's pretty impressive for a small community district like Sycamore to be getting this much feedback and have a spotlight on us right now that we are really setting a trend. So that's awesome. And thank you to everyone that's involved in that project. The other one that I want to make a comment on is Chico Watershed Council. They have they are working and supporting the community and Communities BC Waters against Quagga and zebra mussels. So, and continue that fight and continue to write letters. And we appreciate that very much. They also have a phosphorus plan now for the lake, which is very impressive for our community as well. So the Shuswap Water Council does a lot for us, and I don't think people recognize the strength in them. So I just want to highlight them. And they also chase the algae blooms. So whenever there's an algae bloom, they are the ones all over it, figuring out where it came from and why it happened. So our water is key to our community. So it's a good job we have a guard there. And this one, I'm surprised that no one brought up, is the Shuswap Lake Watch. And I'm sure you all have a comment on that. So go ahead, Councillor Bushel.
Oh, okay, yeah, I had a couple other letters to talk about too.
Okay.
That's right. In regards to the Shuswap Lake Watch, I did talk to Deborah, and unfortunately, Bernard had another stroke. And he's back out of the hospital now, but when he was in the hospital for that long period of time, somebody somehow captured his website and he's rebuilding a new one right now. And he does want to do something with it. He'd like to revive it, a new website for the Shuswap Lake Watch. So it's something that, you know, this gentleman wrote us a letter about it. We've talked about it last year or last spring, I guess, when we were in the flood condition. And I think we should, I don't know if we can take it over, or, we want to dabble into private sector, but we should find somebody to take it over, one of our local community groups to take it over, and maybe it's our Economic Development Corporation, I'm not sure, but it's a very, very popular website, and it sure helps the community in the spring freshet for sure.
Does anyone have any more comments on this particular letter? I'm happy to hear that Bernard's going to spark it again. It truly is something that our community and a lot of our community uses and checks on quite often, but I'd like to keep it free enterprise. I think that most of our DOS staff is taxed with being very busy, and this is, we have a lot of residents that use this program and like it. So perhaps there's someone out there, and if we call out for volunteers, maybe to work with Bernard, perhaps we'll find someone to pick that ball up and keep running down the field with it. Gord, you had something else?
Yeah, just a quick update on the caribou recovery in regards to our herd here on Queese Mountain. It's basically, I'm not sure if it's down to three caribou or not, but they are looking at a closure on Queese. They thought they'd have an answer by this fall, and they're consulting with First Nations. They want to move the herd to the Bourne or the Bischoff herds, the ones that are left. But their First Nations they're still dealing with First Nations on it, and they're not really keen on moving the herd. So we'll just wait to see what happens. We won't be using the front entrance of Queese this year for snowmobiling. We will be using the back entrance just because they're logging all the way back to 23 kilometers or 24 kilometers on Queese. So, and they're logging all winter. So yeah, just a little update on the caribou. The other thing I had on here, of course, we talked a little bit about it. I wanted to thank Deb for Communities in Bloom, that the Community in Bloom's report. was evaluation was very informative. And yeah, the Shoe Rock Lake Watch, that was good.
And go ahead, Councillor Beach.
I just, BC Rural Health Network, I'd like to comment on that letter. We are a member of the BC Health, Rural Health Network, and they speak of the implementation committee in here, which implementation of new directives for interior health programs. I sit on that committee. I just thought I would bring that forward. There is one other lady that I've worked with from South Shuswap that also sits on that committee. And Karen, I've gotten Karen now invited to the implementation committee on behalf of our local health center. So she will be on that implementation committee. And they're looking for the emergency services rep. So I will be talking to somebody there and trying to get someone local representing.
Thank you, Councillor Beach. Okay, if we are correspondence here, let's take some questions from the gallery if anyone has any. Gentleman in the back, your name, please.
My name's Mo, and I just put back to Sycamore this year. We're from 88 to 2012. And I've noticed that there are now rats in the community. I'm wondering if this subject has been, well, you're all new. I'm wondering if the subject is up in front of council as yet.
Thanks, Mo. I'm gonna defer to Councillor Evans, sir.
Thanks, Mo. We actually talked about this 2 years ago. I brought it up. And I asked if we could do more about it. And the problem isn't going away. So I think it's something that we're going to have to tackle head on and be a little more forceful about our approach to it, because you're not the first one in the last month that has talked to me about this. So we're going to have to do something more aggressive about it, I think.
I bring this because I pulled up in front of my brother's house and I saw a rat pop out of his roof vent on top of his house. And it started crawling down a cedar tree, I think. So I got with my brother and we wrapped a proper screen around his roof vents in order to keep them in or out wherever they may have been. But I would like to see some serious interest taken, because these little units can breed extensively, quickly, and freely. And we have a lot of agricultural concerns also around town. If they get into the cornfields, you know, in numbers, then they're going to start to be a big issue. I've heard from numerous people complaints about, yes, I caught 2 in my backyard and there's 2 dead on the lawn. Getting into boats and things of that nature. I think it's very important that it be brought to the top of the pile before the various sort of things.
Thank you, Mo. Daryl, did you want to make a comment on that?
Sure, through the chair. This has come up a few times in the past, and we know that we're not alone in the Okanagan. We know that they have come in through the rail system or however they get here. There are rats around. I guess from a public works standpoint, the first line of defense for us was to arm people that were experiencing it with traps and special rodenticide. We did that for a year or two. We had bylaw helping to educate the people and deliver the traps. And in the last year, they've disbanded all of those products and they no longer let us use them, let alone pass them out to people. So our hands are kind of tied when it comes to any kind of poisoning. I think maybe as a staff, we'll have to look at what kind of education we can put out. I mean, there's correlations between between piles of garbage and rats, there's just a straight line you can draw. So, you know, we'll have to look at what we can do. I think we're a little bit limited. We are taking some calls and we're directing people to Orkin and to some of the other companies that are around. And it's basically just facilitating, but in terms of active getting out there and getting them, we're kind of limited what we can do.
Well, I would offer my own ideas on it. If you find that you might like them, and I would offer to assist in some fashion in order to set up. I don't want to say a department or anything, but you know, you have vehicles going around town with the lawn cutters and leaf raking and all this. You supply one of those to the right persons, along with a number of traps. Perhaps someone in confident motion could do better than simply waiting for the public to you know, buy traps and things like that. I just think it has to be on everyone's mind continually now, because like noxious weeds, they've gotten away from us in places, but rats is a bad thing. And if we don't get on top of it, you know, the tourists will start noticing this before long. Kind of like the mosquito issue of past years. Yeah.
Thanks, mosquitoes. Thank you, Mo. I think it's on Public Works radar and definitely on council's radar as well. Thank you for that. Mary, go ahead.
Yes, I had an encounter out at Canby Hall many years with rats. But what I was wanting to say is I can remember him. You did rat. You used to build something for them.
Not say feeders.
No, not for rats.
What was it for?
We did that for birds and things. It was a grandson's project.
Yeah, I remember. I thought it was rat.
Oh, no, and bats, rats and bats. It rhymes with it rhymes with rats, Mary. So
Rats and bats.
yeah, bats we did.
That's right.
Yeah,
I just, you know, not quite yet.
No,
Ryan, did you have a question?
No, I'm just offering I know I had worked with one sheet last year, but we couldn't use our property for camping, but that's talking to the ALR. We can use our property to assist them.
Absolutely, that'd be great. Deb, did you have anything? Anyone else?
On most point on the rats, like I already talked you guys' ears off, but I have with a few tenants where you just, you've got those points of access and garbage and stuff.
compost.
And, you know, of course, one of the things is we've been promoting composters, but you know, I don't know, maybe we can't if we've got an issue.
Yeah.
Okay.
When I'm ready, when you're ready.
Any other comments, questions? No. The one fellow that was talking about the festival that was.
Andy.
last summer, it was really excellent. And one thing that impressed me that would be nice to keep in mind was I know Shane supplied all the fencing, it was fenced in really well, but it was family too that could come. You see baby buggies and outside the fence, they were dancing with their children and that was really nice to see. It was quite family orientated, but yet inside, I mean, it was.
Yeah, it was. Go ahead, Brian.
I would say Cheryl and she was involved. I know this year, mosquitoes were a heck of a lot worse than they have been previous years, and I know 4 or 5 years ago, had it under control. They weren't afraid to put on the waders and walk back into that crown land. There's lots of stagnant water and treat it. This year, when the water was up, they just went as far as their truck would go. I know I pulled them out a few times already. So they just quit rolling back, wouldn't put on the waders and go back to where the stagnant water was. I think something's got to be done there, otherwise we're gonna have a problem like we did back in 05, 06.
Well, you've just put that on Daryl's radar for that. Thanks, Carol. Any other questions? Comments? Hey Pam, final one.
Oh, gosh, rats, about the rats, they are bad. And I wonder if we should be thinking about doing something in the community in the line of compost pickup. I know we considered it at one point, that was a while back, and the community or somebody voted it down, I can't remember. But composting is an issue and people have to do it. It has to go somewhere. Food waste. We might want to think about.
Noted, perhaps we could take that to strategic priority session and add that to.
Okay.
To that list of things. Okay. That's it. That's a wrap. Where's my?
Bounty on rat.
It's a recommendation that
Just to work.
council meeting for November the 30th, 2020.
On the way first.
Adjourned, the time being 6:35. Thank you, Councillor Evans. All in favor, opposed, adjourned. Thank you all. Thank you for being here today.
Good night.
Back to the beach.
Thank you very much.
8:30 in the morning for him.